workshop for the budget to order, please. This is Wednesday, January 15th. If you would rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Okay. Somebody's anxious to start. A little psyched. So, the first thing on the agenda is actually public comment. Is anybody wanting to make public comment to the council before we get started with the budget process? Seeing nobody, we get to move to the next thing, which is Parks and Rec. And normally I would be expecting Matt to be here, but I'm assuming from the presentation here that we're going to go with the Adult Community Center portion first. So if you... Did you have anything you wanted to add before we got started? Okay.
I did ask permission, for the record. Thank you.
I didn't get that. Oh,
Well,
I'm
well, Tom, what can I say? Good evening, Council
right
Chair
people.
Koenig, Vice Chair Boyd, members of the council, Town Manager Cabanel, and Assistant Town Manager McCallie. Another year has come and gone, and the center is alive and doing well. We continue to serve as a comfortable, affordable, and convenient meeting place for many diverse purposes, ranging from financial seminars and baby showers to support groups, and of course, being the home to the Merrimack Senior Citizen Club. With such meeting space at a premium, not only in Merrimack, but in surrounding communities as well, our reputation has spread far outside of our town, as rental opportunities reflect the effect of internet search capabilities, as well as numerous repeat tenants who have hosted successful events at the center. Our board continues to make the facility more appealing and aesthetically pleasing, and our plans for this coming year include an ambitious initiative to replace the kitchen floor with a much more suitable surface that will allow for ease of cleaning, rather important when the handling of food is involved. The existing homeowner-grade vinyl flooring is in pretty sad shape, and its present condition is not up to par for a kitchen. In addition, similar flooring exists in both the men's and ladies' rooms, which are dated and in need of major upgrades in and of themselves. We're looking to completely gut both of these rooms and replace all fixtures and partitions with new, more efficient, utilitarian, and pleasing ones. We also want to eliminate wasteful supplemental electric baseboard heating in these two rooms and restore proper warm air ventilation to them, which we expect will be possible by examining and mitigating present shortfalls in the existing air supply delivery duct infrastructure. Of course, all improvements will be ADA compatible as required by law, and we will also install baby changing stations in both rooms to meet tenants' needs and expectations. These projects are at the top of our priority list, and with others such as replacement of the end of useful life composite wood dance floor and the carpeting throughout, those projects will wait in the wings as next up. Although we're still in the phase of determining specifics such as choice of materials, etc., dollar figure estimates for this work has not yet been established. We realize that these projects will not be inexpensive, and although such proposed capital improvements to the center, which is of course a town-owned entity, would normally fall under the town's budget, the JOACC board, along with myself, through prudent management and with increasing rentals partly attributed to the improvements and updates we've put in place in recent years, we've accumulated sufficient reserve funds, which we are happy to share with the town in covering such costs. This is in keeping with the other projects the JOACC has undertaken and partially funded to modernize and improve the overall rental experience the center has been able to offer. Along with other expected community partnerships which have financially supported the JOACC in the past, these three sources of financial backing will make it much less painful than if we were to have to go it alone. In short, and to summarize, the JOACC board is grateful to the town council and town management for the continuing support we have been given in protecting, maintaining, and improving this very, very special, precious resource. We also would be remiss in not extending our gratitude to Councilor Harrington, the town council's representative to the center. Councilor Harrington has been an invaluable source to us as a guiding sounding board and a link to the outside world as a first-hand observer as to what challenges we face in shepherding the center as a most unique and vital part of our town. Thanks to all of you.
Nancy?
First of all, I'm a shepherd, I didn't know that. Anyway, I just wanted to be able to highlight and commend the board. Again, being the town council rep, I've observed firsthand their frugality, and yet also taking full responsibility to be a joint member in not only maintaining, but updating and renovating the facility. So I want to commend the board for that, because I think that's always, every single meeting, that's part of the discussion, what needs to be done, what can we do to complement, add on to what the town is doing. So I want to thank the board for focusing on that all the time.
So you talked for a while and you told us some plans. I don't see any of those plans here, and it sounded like you said you didn't really have those plans straightened out yet as far as cost factors and stuff. And
That's correct, Tom. We are gathering estimates. We need to first decide what it is that we want to do. And there are so many choices of materials and options. We're trying to focus on that. Once we have that, the estimates that we've gotten so far, which are dated by now, will be redone and we'll get fine numbers, which we hope to have hopefully within the next 1 to 2 months. And we would like to get started on it as soon as possible.
okay, Peter?
Steve, you mentioned reserves, and maybe I'm missing it right here. Can you let me know the total of the reserves?
We have a bank account,
Yeah.
from which revenue comes in and goes out. We also have a reserve fund, which is kind of like a separate rainy day fund, if you will, which we've managed to extract from the ongoing everyday functions and revenue streams to help cover some of these expenses. So,
Decide specifically for that.
Okay, what's the total of that?
without our treasurer being here?
I don't know the exact number, but I can get it for you.
Okay, I'm just curious, I mean, because I see these changes, and I would agree with you. I'm just thinking of updating the men's and ladies' room with modern economical, facilities. That's pretty expensive, so I didn't realize you had.
Well, it's been quite a while since anything was done with those. Those are original fixtures from, I believe, when the center was converted from the
Oh, yeah.
former police station till what it was, and that was in the early 80s.
Yeah.
So, and facilities like this take a lot of beating and wear and tear. We've been maintaining them, and thanks, again, to Phil and his buddy at Public Works to help us in times of need. I do what I can, but when it's beyond my scope, I ask for them, and Becky helps us, line up folks to help fix the elevator when that breaks, and so on and so forth. There's ongoing stuff all the time.
Now, what are you guys charging for the room for an event?
The rents are based on the number of people who attend each function. So our model, and this is the way it was when I inherited this job back in 2000. So we have currently four tiers of pricing, 1 to 49, 50 to 74, 75 to 124, and theoretically 125 to 200. I'm really trying to not go to 200 people. It's permitted by fire code that it can occupy 200 people, but it becomes quite close in there. And in some of the rentals where they've pushed the max, I feel much more comfortable going forward to kind of limit it to about 150, which is a large number.
So, for an event of 150 people, what would the?
150 people would be about $900, and then a refundable security deposit of about $350.
Okay.
So it's, the lowest cost rental is net cost to a tenant for under 50, which is the most common rental, nets out at $285.
All right.
That includes an opening and closing by our custodian, and unlimited time frame as long as the end time does not exceed 12 o'clock midnight on a weekend.
Okay. All right. Yeah, if you guys could, I'd just be curious what the total is
Yeah, I
in
think
your
that can be
revenues.
this
I think that's fantastic that you can offset a lot of these costs with that, so more power to you.
Thank you.
And obviously for any town functions, there's no charge for town functions. Police department, fire department, education.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I don't know if your mic is on, but
It is now?
they didn't hear you back then.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any other questions or comments? Lon?
I've become a regular consumer of your facility in terms of a club that I belong to. And I will tell you that it is in good shape. But you're right, there are things that need done, and I appreciate you mentioning them, and I think you've mentioned them in the right priority. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Lon.
sir.
You wanted to add something?
The only comment I wanted to make is having to do with the capital reserve funds. They're not that old. It's, I want to say, a couple of years you started, because that was part of the discussion, is we really should, one, if there's going to be a profit, there should be money put in to help maintain.
Yes.
So, and that's why the capital reserve funds, and if we're asking for these improvements to be made, then we should be able to start using any funds we have available for that purpose. And that's why the capital reserve fund was established, and it's not been that long.
Right, it's not been that long, a couple of years.
Exactly.
It's probably been more than, maybe 4 years, I'm thinking, 3 or 4
Even
years.
even if it's that long.
Oh, I think so. But again, that's a segregated portion, and, you know,
Right.
the everyday checking account funds that come in and go out are gonna supplement that. I mean, we're,
Yeah, and all
we're
those
looking to be
books
partners.
are open. In fact, you might, is that what you're going to have a question? Oh, okay.
Just for clarity purposes, it's like a capital reserve fund, but it actually is not a capital reserve fund. So it operates like one.
we call it.
I understand you do, but this is just for the public. We don't have, that's actually a legal term that we, that we have to set it up and the public has to approve it and that kind of thing. But, so it's literally a savings account for capital projects, but it's
That's
just.
what- Exactly.
Yeah, which is a great thing. The only thing that I want to say to you is that I guess I'm asking you, are you going to come back to us in this budget season and ask us for more money? Because the budget that would be a difficult thing.
No,
Okay.
this is ongoing.
I'm
This
just
is-
asking.
No.
That's a
We
good
understand
question,
the
though.
framework of it. We've submitted our budget as expected for the
Okay.
coming 2021 year.
Okay,
We're all
so this
set
is
with
a preview.
that. Yep, exactly.
We would start the first project with the town's permission.
Great.
And then after the first project is done, we analyze our finances, determine what the second project is, get the town's approval, do the second project. It wouldn't be all done at once. It would be project review.
Okay. The only reason why I'm asking you is that we're facing some real budget challenges
Oh,
this
yeah.
year in terms of additional costs and some other things that people are coming to us after the budget has already been submitted. Now, all of a sudden, they're coming back for more money, and it's already, some of the council members are thinking it's already, the budget is too high. So I actually thank you very much for letting us know well in advance, not at the last minute.
Exactly.
So,
Sure.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, last year, the town grant went up significantly from before, because you guys were not getting significant rents and you were concerned and stuff like that. Now you've gotten better rents coming in and we're level funding it this year, or?
The rents are totally unpredictable, obviously, as one may imagine. It's like having a store, and depending upon who comes through the door and how big their paycheck is to reflect their purchasing power. We're not the only game in town, but we are, in a way. This is a very unique place. And I could hardly get any work done today because I was on the phone for all morning with one call after another. This is unusual for about 4 rental opportunities just this morning. Very unusual. There's no way to predict, but all we know is that our rentals have increased steadily over the last number of years. And I think it's because people have experienced an event there, have attended them, and we have lots of repeat tenants.
Okay.
So,
Did you have something, Bill?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Larry, just a quick, based on dovetailing off Chairman Koenig's question regarding some of the upticks that are going on at the JOACC, I noticed that the coordinator's position, the subcontractors increased by $6,000. Is that to reflect the increase in activity that's going on at the facility so that we're compensating the coordinator to be able to coordinate those specific activities?
Yes, it is. The board met without Steve there, And we looked at the work he was doing prior to the last 2 or so years, and then when the project started, the amount of time he was putting in addition to his normal duties. And after discussion, we thought that it was fair to compensate him for those times. The amount of work he's doing now is much greater than he has been doing in the past.
No argument. Okay, thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay, I think we're good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming in.
Have a good night.
And now they're going to the party that I can't be at, because I'm here,
You could be excused.
fulfilling my
but-
responsibility.
Well, that's good. We're glad to have you.
Boo-hoo, bee-hoo, no. What'd I give up for you?
Okay, now back to our regularly scheduled schedule. Do you have anything to present, Matt, or are we just gonna?
I have a little bit. I'm gonna try and be quick though tonight. I'm waiting for them. They were supposed to come out and turn the projector on, but we'll get started in a minute. But good evening, members of the council. Thank you for your time this evening. The Parks and Recreation Department exists to provide quality of life to the residents of Merrimack, and we do this by offering a wide variety of recreational programs and special events in safe, well-maintained recreational facilities. In 2019, the Parks and Rec Department offered 190 different programs, activities, and events for people to participate in. We directly served more than 6,000 participants in those programs and events. And that, of course, does not include everybody that just went to a sports field or just visited a park or, those kinds of things, because we just don't have the capacity to track park visitors at this point. But, as we've seen the last couple of years, we've seen growing popularity with a lot of our community special events, our Halloween party, the Winter Carnival, Easter egg hunt, where we're seeing upwards of 800, 1,000 people at each one of those events. Now, Halloween this year in particular, I think we were at about 1,100 this year, and we were kind of maxed out. They were parked out on Natticook Road. It was kind of interesting to see how that worked out. So, but it did work. And so in preparing for this year's budget, you'll notice very few changes to our budget overall. Our budget is broken into two components, the taxpayer-funded side and the recreation revolving fund. So we'll start with the taxpayer-funded budget. And realistically, just about the entire budget is level funded from last year. The only changes are mostly things that we can't necessarily control, so natural gas, water, electricity, those types of kind of utility expenses. Lifeguard salaries and, those kind of things went up a little bit, but that's just, again, difficulty hiring things like lifeguards and trying to keep up with the market. But the main thing that I wanted to talk about tonight on the taxpayers funded side was under 8505, which is infrastructure, which was the tennis court resurfacing project. And I have some pictures up here on the screen that I took yesterday. And if you recall, when I was here in November, we talked about tennis courts very briefly. And what we've had is, over the last 3 or 4 years, we've started developing cracks across the entire set of courts. Now, these are the only tennis courts in town, and we've been kind of trying to patch those cracks as they occur, but realistically, it's a stopgap measure. What we're hoping to do, obviously, is to fix all 7 tennis courts by resurface them, and then resurface, retexture the courts. Now, courts should normally be done anywhere between 5 and 8 years, and as far as I can tell, they haven't been done in probably closer to 15. And so, like I said, you are seeing the problems like we have here on these pictures here, and obviously we want to prevent them from getting worse. The budget I have for this is just put the number down, hold on. 37,000, which was based on an estimate from one of the companies that does this work. And so before I move on, any questions about tennis courts or any other part of the Parks and Rec line items?
Peter?
Matt, how often are the tennis courts used?
Every day.
Every day, there's a steady
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, 7 days a week. We also have the high school that practices and has their matches there as well. So yeah, it's 7 days a week over there. It's kind of funny because usually we keep the nets up as late as we can in November, and it's all kind of weather dependent. And, we'll get like mid-November, and all of a sudden we'll get either a hard frost or we'll get snow, and so we'll take the nets down, and then like a week later we'll get a warm-up day, and it'll be like it was the other day, and all of a sudden we're getting calls from people going, well, where'd the nets go? I was like, it's December. They'll be back in April, But it's, pretty much 3 seasons. People are out there pretty much every day.
And I don't think I asked you this last year, but, and I forgot that the high school team uses it. Do we get any help from the school on the maintenance of those courts?
No, we don't.
With their use?
No.
Okay.
It's just kind of like with all the other fields that they might use on occasion from us,
Gotcha.
so.
Eileen?
One of the things I wanted to let you know is that remember how I told you that I actually had a list of capital projects that I was proposing to use the fund balance for? This is one of them. So this isn't actually, again, what I had done was, because our fund balance has increased over the years, we're using a consistently larger amount to offset operating funds in a even way, while at the same time selecting a group. I think it was almost $650,000 worth of things, which included this, to come from fund balance, the one-time costs. Yes, you look
Okay.
puzzled. No,
No, I'm not befuddled.
it's just irregular.
Just this whole item here is up and down. So
Okay.
this year, we've got $95,000 or $100,000, $103,000 in that line item,
Which is the beach renovation
which
project.
is going to happen.
Yeah, Dawn and I are meeting with the state next Wednesday.
Okay.
And that's in this current year.
That's in this
we're
current
in.
year's
So
budget,
it's up
yes.
until June 30th. and-
Yes.
Yep,
Okay, and you expect to have that open this summer?
that is the plan, yes.
Because I thought I was hearing that it wasn't going to be able to be open by this summer,
That's,
last time you were here, but maybe I misheard.
that's
And
not my
that's a great
understanding,
thing.
no.
Okay. And then when you originally presented this, you presented it for 61,000, but it's not there now.
Oh, there was originally, the other issue we had talked about back in November was the cabins that we were having issues with, and that has been,
Demolition of 3 cabins is written here with no numbers.
did you end up taking that?
We were planning on doing it this fiscal year.
Oh.
That's why it came out of the budget.
Awesome.
We plan on taking care of it all at once. With that being said, the reason why it hasn't happened over the winter is fortunately, or unfortunately, one of the cabins we're scheduled to look at demoing, a tree hit it. So now it's an insurance claim. So we're looking at maybe rebuilding the cabin to proper specs, so that one might not be coming down. But when we get a final list of cabins, before we move on to demolition, we will bring them in front of the council to let you know which cabins in the park we are planning on demoing.
So do we need to bring in some more beavers and take some more trees down?
Yeah, that too.
Well, that's what I mean.
There's a lot of pine trees over there.
Anyway. Okay. Any other questions on this portion of the budget? Do we want to go over the MYA or? Yeah, I know that. I'm sorry, I saw that. Do you want to talk about that, or do you want to have them come up and?
That's why we're on this side.
Good evening, Brian. Thanks for coming. How are things going with the MYA these days?
Going all right. We're putting a lot of work in, and I think we're getting there. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we're putting a lot of work in to get the audit and everything out to the auditor. Matter of fact, I think it's going, all the information's going out this week to get it over to him. He already has all our bank statements and stuff like that, but as far as the registrations and stuff, it took a little more time than anticipated. but I believe he's getting that this week. They had a meeting yesterday that I was unable to attend, so I haven't really touched base with anyone on if it's going out this week. So,
Okay. You guys have put money in for MYA this year, assuming we can get things cleaned up and cleared up enough to renegotiate the contract and figure that out. Do you want to make any comments about that, or?
no, the only comment I have is, I believe we anticipated, we are asking for another 3,500. So I believe it went from 72,000 to 75.5, is, if that's right. Which is to offset the audit and the bookkeeper, the new cost of the bookkeeper. We anticipate the bookkeeper costing us about 7,500 for the year. And I think that will be just this initial year. And I'm hoping that cost is gonna go down by 2021. So that's why we only put in 3,500, so.
Okay.
But as far as that, the other programs are kind of par for course, asking for the same town grant and allotment. We're going from there, so.
Okay. So I presume we'll be hearing from you sometime between now and June or July to talk about the status of the
I was hoping to have this
contract.
information to you already, so we're pushing the auditors, and we're trying to get it by the end of January, because, it's gonna come into busy season for them.
Yep.
So we're pushing them as much as we can. But like I said, they have 75% of the information. We just had to get, we were waiting on a couple programs, trying to get the rest of the reconciliations completed and over to them. So what we did is we formed the financial committee. It's a group of about 6 people, and we tore apart and dissected every program. And every week we spent about 4 or 5 hours at the MYA building, tearing apart soccer. Next week was baseball. Next week was, so we did all that. We were missing some information, so we had to go back to them, get that information, and because we wanted that information in our hands before we sent it to the auditor, just to kind of do a audit before we
A
sent
quick
it
look, at least.
to the
yes.
audit.
Makes
So,
sense.
Okay?
Good. Eileen?
From what I understand from talking to Paul, the executive committee is doing an excellent job and really working on this, but sometimes personalities in the individual programs, they might like to continue doing things the same way and might not, so it's not that they're being, it's in some ways going, obviously it's improved greatly, but it's hard. There are personalities that most people are working really well with it, and some are having a hard time with somebody telling them what to do. So I just wanted to let you know that that as far as the executive committee, they're fully engaged and are working on it. So it's not, but it's more difficult, and that's why it seems like you'd think you'd be able to correct that quickly, but sometimes
Yep.
it's
No,
not as easy.
I understand, yeah.
And
Nancy,
just-
did you have something?
Just to clarify, the finance committee it's not just the same people that have been doing it. We have, I believe I told you at our last meeting I attended, we have Roman Galakanis, sorry Roman, probably butchered that his last name, but he's the executive, or the retired executive from SCORE.
Right.
He worked for USA Velcro, and he was a high-level executive. He has been helping us out as being part of the finance committee, and also a young lady from Merrimack Tax has attended every meeting as well, which MYA has been paying for her services to come to our meetings and also go back, take the paperwork back, and make journal entries. We're cleaning up chart of accounts, and I don't even know why I know all these words now, but yeah. So, we're making great strides, and if we can't do it this time, then I really don't know what to do, to be honest with you. But we're certainly trying, and all the programs are trying too. They're getting calls at 9 o'clock at night and answering our questions too. So,
It's awesome.
Uh,
Good. Well, I appreciate that. Appreciate the work that you're putting into it. Nancy?
Just to back you up a little bit, as the town council sort of unofficially appointed me to work with MYA.
we appreciate that.
And I think that's your point, is I was surprised at how receptive they were at my attendance. I'm certainly not there to tell them what to do or to guide them, really, because they're the ones that has to do the work. But I am there to listen and to be able to support them and encourage them. And what I said to them is, the council cares, and we want you to be successful. And my presence there is to hopefully give that across, and at the same time reinforce that all the time. But also to provide feedback to this council that what I did observe is a seriousness. Yes, change is hell, it's difficult. Why do we have to do this? But we still have to do it, we know that. So just to be able to report from my observation is that I think they are focused in the correct direction. I think they're really working diligently to do that, and they've got the people, they've done all those things we've asked them to do. So I think they're on the right track. As I've said to them, it's hell now, but once it's done, it'll be done. And then that procedure will just follow on. This is the hardest part. And they all went, yeah, kind of thing. So one, I want to be able to continue to encourage them that they are definitely on the right track, but also to report to the council that that's what I observed. And I think that sometime in the future, hopefully sooner than later, once we get the go-ahead that you're in good shape, that we want to be able to reinstate that money into your budget. So I wanted to finish that presentation with that positive thought. Just keep on it. We know it's hard, but this council wants to support that too.
Thank you.
Peter?
Yeah, this is all good to hear, because I know last time you were in front of us and we had that was a very hard hearing for me, because I know what a great organization MYA is, and I know how hard everybody works and they're volunteering their time. So, and I agree with Nancy. I think once you guys get through the work of this, and hopefully it'll be easier having that structure in place as you guys go, and we'll never have to revisit this again, and keep funding a great organization.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Great. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right. Have a great night.
Anything else for this part of Section 13 of Parks and Rec? Seeing none. Want to move to the summer day camp, or
Yep. All right.
whatever tab that is?
So onto the recreation revolving fund side of our camp, which is basically all the programs that we run. As a reminder for anybody watching from home, 4 years ago at town meeting, the town approved the establishment of the revolving fund. And what that means is that all the programs that we run are entirely self-funded. We don't get any tax money for them, and so the programs that are in here, there's no kind of tax into that. So yes, they are going up this year, but there's no impact on it because they're paid for out of.
Is your mic on? Just
Sorry.
out of curiosity.
Thank you. So there's no tax impact because they're all paid for entirely out of user fees. The other benefit of the revolving fund is that it obviously gives us a lot more flexibility to bring in new programs kind of on the fly instead of trying to pre-schedule something out 18 months in advance. If you remember the first couple of years I was here, we were looking, 18 months to 2 years down the road of trying to try this or add that, and it's kind of hard to plan that, know what conditions are going to be like. Money is accounted obviously the same way that taxpayer funds are, through the finance office. So there's nothing that changes with that. And so, aside from the direct cost of running all those programs, which was, we ran 190 programs this past year, which is up slightly from the year before. We are tasked, collectively, those programs are tasked with covering both a portion of my salary and benefits and as well as the program coordinator's salary and benefits. Each year, Paul gives us a number to factor in for the budget, which for next year is $54,076. And so what we do is we take basically our 8 largest programs, and we charge off that $54,000 proportionally to those 8 programs. And the reason we focus on these 8 is they are the biggest programs. They are the ones that we know are going to run. We have fairly stable income from them, so there's not a lot of fluctuations. Of the other things that we run, there's a lot of classes that we run, and there might be 10 people in a class, and we might only make $25 at the end of the day, but that's okay because we're providing that service. So again, we focus on those largest programs. Now, if you look at the top line on the photo here on the screen, Natticook Day Camp, which is obviously our largest program, covers 68% of that $54,000, which is about $36,000, $36,771, and then the percentages go down, from there. As our camps are growing, now last year, Natticook Day Camp had its highest attendance ever, and actually our teen camp sold out with a fairly extensive waiting list, and so we're actually expanding capacity on both camps this year because we did have wait lists. And so last year, I think the teen camp was only covering, it was like 15%, and now it's jumped up to 23 because it's going to be that much bigger of a program this year. And then all the other ones are kind of minor, small, little programs.
Is teen camp the same as Camp Trek, or?
Camp Trek, yes.
Okay. The budget has it listed one way, you're talking about it a different way. It's going to confuse some of us.
Yep. Sorry. And as I said, we do offer, it was 190 programs last year. We're trying to focus on adding a variety of kind of preschool as well as, and we've actually done a lot with preschool this year. And then the next focus is looking at kind of more teens and adults programming. But sometimes it does take a couple of years to get new programs off the ground. For this coming year, as I said, we are essentially following the same plan as last year, with the exception that both our Natticook Day Camp and our Trek program are going to get bigger because we were selling out. And this year, with being able to expand capacity, as long as we can get the staff, we won't have to do that. So that will be a nice expansion. So those are the main things I wanted to just mention on the revolving fund. Like I said, there is no tax impact on our programs, and we are kind of steadily growing, and hopefully we'll have some stability in my office now going forward. We've had a couple of turnovers internally the last couple of years, so hopefully we'll be stable for a little while. And but I'm open to questions if you have particular questions.
Peter?
We had two state reps here last week talking to us about a legislative bill on minimum wage. Have you been following that at all?
I have, and actually this morning I attended a meeting. I sit on the board for the New Hampshire Camp Directors Association, and that association actually retains a lobbyist to keep track of it and keep us informed about what those bills are. Her opinion was that yes, it'll probably pass the House and the Senate, but the governor's not gonna sign it, is her thoughts, and that she doesn't feel like there's enough votes to override it. Now, next November, if the governor changes to a Democrat, then yeah, that's probably something. Now, one of the things I have already done, in case that it does happen, I've already written out what the impacts to my budget for camp are, both for this year, if it did go through this year, but also for the next 5 years based on that bill that came out last Thursday.
You happen to have that with you?
Yeah.
I have a copy of it.
Do you mind telling us what you think the impact would be?
What's that?
Did you tell us what the impacts would be?
Sure.
In a year or two?
So this year, if it went into effect, right now I only have one position which is 6 employees. That's our junior camp counselors that are currently making less than the proposed $850. To raise just those up would add only about $700 to the budget. Again, it's only 6 employees for 9 weeks of the summer, so not a huge impact. The challenge becomes then. Right now, that position, we're actually paying $8 an hour for that position, which is 75 cents above the minimum wage. If I want to continue paying 75 cents above the minimum wage, which that would put that position to $9.25, right now my senior camp counselors are making $9, which means I'm going to push them up, which is going to push everybody else up. If I do that, it's about a $10,000 impact for this year. We have already opened camp registration for this year, so I can't change the fee. We've already probably taken 40 or 50 registrations this week. So we'd still be able to cover it, but it'd be tight. Going to next year, if this went through, I would have to raise the cost of camp for next year by $40 a week, which. Correct, summer 2022, because there's a $2 jump in the scale from that first year to the second year. Beyond that, it's basically $15 a year jump just to maintain the salaries.
Now, you've come before the council before, saying that it's kind of been a hardship trying to find people to work because the salaries we're paying these kids. Are we competitive now, or?
We're in a pretty good place at this point. We've had adjustments the last kind of 2 years in our scales for certain positions that we're particularly struggling with. This is a new wrinkle, and obviously it kind of depends on whether it passes or not with how much of a wrinkle it's going to be. Obviously, if it does pass, we'll know this spring, and obviously for next year, we already know what the impact's going to be, or we have a good sense of what the impact is going to be. Because one of the things that will happen is obviously the cost of other things is going to go up. For example, with the teen camp, they do a lot of field trips, so bus costs are going to go up. The cost to visit those field trip locations, their fees are going to go up to pay for their, and so it's kind of a corresponding. But salary alone, it's $40 the first year per week, and then about $15 a week beyond that. Now, with that said, right now we are on the lower end of what we're charging the public to go to camp. And every other camp's going to be dealing with the exact same issues. So I think we'll be okay. We're not going to lose a ton of people because it's too expensive, but we probably will lose some. We also will probably see more requests coming into PAD and welfare for financial aid and, those kinds of things, down the road. Scholarship program, yes.
Thank you.
So we have looked fairly extensively not that long ago about the staffing wages, and what it doesn't seem to be, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but it doesn't seem to be that we're paying insufficient wages for most for any positions, but it for some unknown reason people don't want to be lifeguards and swim instructors and those kinds of things, and every town is facing the same thing. One of the things that we were talking about was, because obviously it's on the lake, and we want to take advantage of that and offer that to kids. But is the idea of paying for people's, is it Red Cross?
Red Cross
Red Cross certification with some, we're not going to pay for it and have them work for a week and then do something like that, but looking at it from that point of view. So I'm pretty sure our wages as they stand are not, I know that they've been reviewed and are adequate, and it's just people don't want to do lifeguards. I don't know. Bedford's the same way, right?
Everybody.
Okay. Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Matt, can you talk to me a little bit about the school vacation week programs and how they've been faring along this
Sure.
past year?
So School Vacation Week is a program we started 3 or 4 years ago now. The last 3 years, we've focused, it's obviously December, February, and April. And the last 3 years, we've focused on a program solely at Wasserman Park. It's almost like a winter version of summer camp. So it's sports and games, it's arts and crafts, it's nature exploration, it's, playing in the snow, those kinds of things. And it's done fairly well. February and April always do better than December, and December's always kind of weird depending on where Christmas falls. Like this year, December didn't do really well, only because, Thursday, Friday, Christmas was Wednesday, so Thursday, Friday, didn't end up running just because there wasn't enough interest in it. But then the following week, we ran Monday, Tuesday, the 30th and 31st, with programs, and that did pretty well. But usually we've got 30 kids a week between February and April. Doing kind of, again, variety of kind of sports games, crafts, that sort of thing. We're trying for February of this year to introduce some field trips into vacation week, and so we'll have kind of an on-property option as well as an off-site option in trying to gear more towards the older kids, the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th grade, going to some kind of cool destinations. To try and get them out and about, so it's not just the base program. But yeah, it's been fairly popular, and usually we're selling out, with those programs.
Thank you.
And as you said, you're able to cover the cost with the fees and stuff.
Yep.
So whatever you can do is awesome because it's helping somebody.
Right.
Anybody else have any questions on this? Is there anything else we should be thinking about in Parks and Rec?
so. I was
You're
trying
doing
to
a great job. We appreciate all the work you do.
Keep it simple and easy this year.
Can't argue with that. Thank you very much. Which brings us into welfare when we can get the table switched. Thank you. Welcome back. It's good to
Good
see you
evening.
again.
Okay, tonight I'm here to present the welfare budget. The total amount for the welfare budget proposed is $164,136. And the first thing I want to talk about is the part of the budget that actually is state mandated, in which we have to provide assistance. And this is always part of the budget that we are looking at the line items and trying to guess what will be the assistance for the year that we need to do, because under the state law, we have to assist, and we have to go over budget if the assistance is required. So therefore, this is always the part that's hard to guess, but this is what I've done this year. The total increase for this part of the budget is $2,148. And I've done some adjustments in some of the line items, reducing them, but I increased the housing line item because we're seeing a lot of need coming through lately, and a lot of homelessness, a lot of shelters being backed up. It took me like 2 months to get one homeless family into a shelter, which normally only takes me usually about a week maybe. But so there's a lot of the other concerns are high rents that are happening. Fair market rents went up again. The vacancy rate is extremely low, so therefore it's harder for people to move around when prices do go up and they have to adjust. So we're seeing all these kind of stressing points that are happening, and some cases, people working, multiple jobs, just trying to keep the rent and over their heads. So this is something that has been keeping me very busy. And so it's something that, at this point, though, I looked at the budget, and we have only spent 44%, and that brings us about a little bit more than halfway through the year. So we're on target for this year, but I don't know, but we have had increased activity since probably September. And so therefore, I don't know if this is a new trend and we're going to see this continue. I'm not sure. I'm hoping not. We'll see what happens. So just in case, because of the increase in all the other factors, I decided to increase the housing market budget for a little bit more, and hoping that we don't go over there. On the second part of the budget is the social service funding requests that we get. And in this case, this actually really reduces or helps services in our community, hopefully reducing what we have to put out in assistance under the mandated part of the budget. And this budget part has been level funded. We haven't gotten any new requests this year, but we did get one request back that hadn't requested last year because of a management issue. Caregivers, which we've always funded, they provide volunteer transportation service for elderly people in our community. They are now under the management of Catholic Charities, so they did request a funding again for this year. But last year they hadn't because there was some changes going on there. So other than that, that's about the only major change. I did some slight increases because we had one agency that did not request funding, so I dispersed the rest out as I could. So other than that, that's about it for that part of the budget. And the revenues at this point, just to give you an idea, I think our last year, we came in at about 9,000, a little over 9,000. I think we're hoping usually for 12,000. But that's also one of those things that we can't predict on how much money we will get back if, when people pay back, because people will pay back when they're able to do so, especially if they have a lien on their property. So one year we got over $73,000, and one year we got $250. So it's really very hard to predict what's going to happen and when people will be able to pay us back. So that's about it for the welfare budget. Any questions?
Are there any questions for welfare? We certainly appreciate the work you're doing, and I know it can be very tough, and I appreciate that you can do this on a part-time basis instead of full-time. But I often hear about how much you're doing in helping out people. Obviously not specific cases, everything's indirect, as it should be. I don't want to know. But I appreciate that you're there taking care of them and making sure that we're a good community.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Bill, did you have something?
Just a quick question, Pat. Did you ever get any reason as to why Lamprey did not submit a request?
No, I tried to contact them. Usually, one of the things that happens when I don't get a request, it's very hard to take in requests when suddenly they realize that they've forgotten or they missed the deadline. So I did try to reach out, and the person that I had contact with, it bounced back, so that person must no longer be there. So I'm not too sure what's going on there, but it definitely sounds like they have maybe some management changes, and maybe they don't. I'm not really sure what's going on, so I was a little surprised. This is the first year this has happened, and we usually have relied on them to fill some needs in the community, so hopefully they can continue to do that without our funding for this year.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
And before, if I can just have the indulgence of the council for one more thing.
Sure.
Paul McCallie asked me to bring up something that normally is in the general government budget, and that's the paratransit program. The bus
Nashua
there.
Paratransit.
Yep.
And we had an oversight in that. We usually ask for a request for funding, and a letter, and so they gave us one, and we forgot to update it, so the amount. So the letter and the request that they asked under the budget, it's under,
Yeah, it's under the general government tab,
General government.
01018405.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
on-
have the page number because I'm looking at mine. It's towards the very back of general.
845.
8405.
yeah,
Right,
it
Nashua
says
Transit.
Nashua Transit System.
Uh-huh.
Page 15.
So,
bottom of
under,
15.
under the department budget, we forgot, so they asked for $38,866, which is a $6,321 increase.
Right.
And as you see, they hadn't asked for an increase in several years, so we did ask them more information about why that increase why they were asking for that increase. And so they basically have given us more information in terms of the hourly rate that's required to run the fleet. So this grant that comes into the from the federal government is a 50-50 match. So they get 50% of the costs, and then we're supposed to pay the other 50% on the communities that use these services. This is how they just figure out which community and how much we each need to do. So then they base it on the cost of an hourly rate of service. And so I just wanted to just read what they said. For the past number of years, NTS has not significantly raised our hourly rate. However, in recent years, we have largely replaced both our fixed route and paratransit fleets, which is what we do, and in doing so, conducted a thorough review and analysis of our hourly rate. This hourly rate accounts for maintenance costs, fuel, and vehicle depreciation. So that is why once they've actually figured out what they should be charging, this is why there is this increase that they're requesting. So I think Paul will make that probably addition at some point, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention, only because I do get more phone calls, and I do work with people more on, the applications and getting this. I also work with Nashua Transit System to make sure we're meeting the needs of our citizens, and so therefore I a lot of times will talk to them more than Paul gets to talk to them.
So you're comfortable with the increase being justified and
637.
it's our responsibility to cover that amount?
I think, because of the number of years that they haven't increased it, and so this is something that I think they've reasonably explained it to me. It sounds logical to me in terms of everything that they explained, and that's why I wanted to explain it to you guys, because I don't feel like they're just doing this to charge us more. That's what my feeling is. So I really feel like this is a real need, but I just wanted to bring this to your attention because it was something we kind of overlooked when we put it for the budget this season. So we just wanted to make sure you were aware of that.
Okay. Peter?
Pat, how many people are they actually transporting? Do they do you tell you how many rides they give or how many people they serve?
The last one I got, and I didn't bring my folder, is about 56 people.
How many?
56.
56, okay.
So these are people who are elderly, disabled. They're going to adult daycare, doctor's appointments, or some jobs. That's more rare. But the thing is, this is for people who don't have the ability to drive. And so therefore, that's what this is is for people who, it's a door-to-door transit system. So they have to do an application, and then they call, and then they have to pay too. So even the amount of money that we're requested to pay, they take out the box amount, they call it. So that's like $4 each way. So when they go to Nashua, it's $4 each way for that, and that's taken out of that administrative cost that gets subtracted down to us. So there is a cost factor, but it is a door-to-door demand service. They come into Merrimack I think it's like a couple of times a day, but it depends on their on the schedule, and so they pick a bunch of people up, and they bring them to Nashua, and they bring them back. And you can get services within Merrimack, and they do that in that route in between, so it's a lot of complicated stuff there. I don't know all the ins and outs, they have all that down. I just know, basically, I try to make sure that when I hear people need transportation, let them know where they can get the application and how to apply to it.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so it's 56 people, but it's a lot more than just 56 trips or
Oh,
something like that.
definitely, yeah.
It's multiple trips per day throughout the week,
Yeah,
throughout the year. Okay.
yes, oh, yes, definitely.
Do you have something?
I was just going to say, my neighbor's son has Downs and uses Nashua Paratransit to go to work at Plus Companies
Oh,
every
so
day.
there you gotta work one.
Yep.
Yeah.
And without fail, like, 7:30 in the morning, without fail, they're there, and he's walking out, ready to go to work. So it's a good service, really is. And it gives some independence to people that, because of where we're located, unfortunately, it's not like people can hop on the subway or take the commuter rail. It is an important service for people that use it to have a level of independence in their life. So I think it's important. So I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you
Okay,
very much.
thank
We
you.
appreciate it, Pat. Go away.
Didn't they want to go last?
I thought that, yeah. What? We're all done? Oh, geez, that was easy. And so we're moving into, I think, communications is next? Is that? Or you can take us wherever you want amongst your three to start with.
Good evening.
Good
Thank
evening.
you. Mr. Chairman, may I have one moment to, if I could,
You
just...
certainly can.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. It's been a while, actually, since I've been here in front of you. I just wanted to, I just feel compelled to do this, and whether it's appropriate or not, I apologize if it's not. Back in early October, I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and it's been a difficult road, to say the least, but there are a couple things that have really, for me, been life-changing. And I've always known and appreciated the people that I've worked with. It's been absolutely an incredible career for me. But, just because I have this diagnosis and I'm through treatment, the show still must go on. The police department doesn't stop because I'm having chemo. And the people that I'm here with, the people that I work with, have picked up the slack where I couldn't. And I could never express my gratitude to them for that. Paul calls and checks on me, and I appreciate that he changed this meeting for me, because this was my off week of chemo, so I was able to feel a little bit better. And most importantly, I also think that the council should know how I appreciate Eileen more than I could explain to her. She, when I've not been at my best, she's never pressured me. There's a lot of people who go through this, and they are always worried about their job and their performance, and I've never once felt that. So I just wanted to publicly say thank you very much. I appreciate your support to help me get through this. And I just also wanted to say that if I feel awkward at any point tonight, I'm going to take my hat off and make you look at my awkward bald head to distract you from anything. So just
They already look at mine, so.
It's definitely not as shiny as yours, so thank you very much.
Touche.
Well, Pete, yours is, I'm so used to yours, Pete. No, so just thank you. That's all I wanted to say. So we're here tonight for communications. We'll start off with communications. We've, again, with both the communications and the police budget, we've really tried to, this year, look at needs versus wants. I certainly want a lot more than we need, so we've tried to be responsible, which is certainly something in the communications lines that we have done. I'm assuming we'll go through last year, through each one that we have increased, so that if there's any questions, if that is good with everybody. So in 058260, should be under telephones. Okay. So you'll see an increase of $9,050. That's certainly not something that we want to do. It's a upgrade from copper to fiber lines. And I'm not a tech person, so forgive me. Captain Marquis will definitely have to step in if you have questions that I can't answer. But this is not the installation of the fiber lines. It's actually the operating costs for the increase. I think everyone has known throughout the last year we've really suffered some significant losses with our phones, and it's been frustrating for us as well as the public. And we're hoping, we'll knock on wood, that this will help solve that problem. And certainly, you know, again, it's not something that we wanted. It's not something we're looking for. It's something that has happened, and it's an operating cost. But I felt it significant to mention so that you would understand that we're hoping that this solves the problem that we have been having. Sorry. My eyesight's going too. I am a mess. Just a mess. 05811111. Did I put too many ones in? So it should be overtime other.
Okay.
So you're going to notice a significant, over the last year, significant overture of that line. Over the years, we've been going over our overtime budget significantly. So what we're trying to do now is that's not going to change. There are 7 dispatchers who work, and 5 of them work a day. And 2 of the shifts require 2 people for coverage. So and we have to take into account vacations and sick time. So what we're trying to do slowly is bring up what we're spending. So the $10,000 is probably still not going to cover, but we're trying to make it more even so that we're spending exactly what there is in the overtime budget, if that makes sense. If it doesn't, it's definitely not my fault.
I mean, overtime rarely makes sense.
Yeah.
But in any case, I mean, it's a little strange that last year we only spent 21,000, or we budgeted 21,000. Excuse me, we spent 43,000 the year before that.
That's correct.
I don't know why we would have budgeted half that amount, but except that we didn't know what number it was or should have been.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
Eileen, do you have?
So this is in a couple of lines that you'll see in the communications budget. For some reason, rather than kind of keeping up with actual, for many years. So if you looked at the other form of this, the one where they showed more years, you'll see every year they've been spending about $43,000.
Oh, okay.
For some reason, when the budget has been presented, it's understated, and they just use the money from somewhere else. So that happens in this case, and it happens in another one, which I'm sure we'll get to in a minute. But so we're trying to move up the budget to match reality. And this isn't, as I said, it's not a wish. It's dispatchers must be there. So regardless of what the budget is, like Pat's budget, you have to pay it. So it's just been under budgeted for many years.
Okay. Moving along to 8300, travel and meetings.
Okay.
Okay, so you'll see $1,000 for travel and meetings, and this is going to actually coincide with 8352, education and training. So we tried to look at, over the last few years, an area which we may have been lacking in, for lack of a better term, and that is training that we provide to the dispatchers. It's very difficult, again, because there's only 2 people in there at a time, and you know, there's 5 people that work a day, so taking somebody out requires us to pay overtime. But when we really started to look at that, the professionalism that we need these dispatchers to have is incredible, because we're asking them to take these phone calls from anything. It could be anything from a barking dog to a life-threatening emergency and everything in between. So our focus this year has been to provide more training to the dispatchers, more quality training to the dispatchers. Finding training is very difficult for them. For some reason, it's not throughout the state. There isn't a lot of it. So just an example, I'm sorry? NHMA, yes, we did look at NHMA. There's definitely some good training, right to know training. But just to give you an example, we pulled 3 of the courses, and each course is approximately $230 per person. And that's just for one course. So it's, you know, although it's a lot cheaper sometimes than maybe the officers have, it's expensive. And to get them the quality training that they need, and to also pay for their certification training, we require them to be certified in certain things when it comes to the computers and to information that's received through Concord. And in order to do all of that, we have to pay the money, and we want to keep them up to the standards that they should be. What really opened our eyes to it is this year, and because you'll notice, this past year, so the last fiscal budget, we were able to obtain some through Captain Marquis' excellent ability, obtained some free training for them. And we saved a significant amount of money doing that, but we realized that, you know, to do this and to get them, we can't do that all the time. We can't expect free training all the time. He had to really work at it to get it. So in order to keep up with the standards that we require, we're going to have to start sending them, you know, to a little bit. It's a distance. Some of them they have to travel and requires different things. So that's why you'll see the increase in the $1,000 and the $2,000 in education and training.
Okay. Peter?
Quick question on that note, Chief. Are we getting any communications training from the NHMA or Primex?
So Primex, I don't have the Primex answer. I do have the NHMA. Most of the NHMA courses would be more relevant towards our records division, the right to know laws and that information. They don't have anything like Power School that's or PowerPhone. Not Power School. PowerPhone. They don't provide any of those trainings because they're so specialized. So we do have to go outside for them.
Okay. I don't think we've had anything through Primex.
No. And we do keep an eye on Primex because we send several of our officers to Primex schools. So, okay. So that'll bring me to 8504 office equipment. It's a $6,000 increase. What that is for the upgrade in just the computers, so the actual hard drives, monitors, inside our communications division. So as you can imagine, these computers are taxed, beyond taxed, because they run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and there's a lot of information stored on them. And we have not purchased new computers. And again, this is just the hard drives. That has nothing to do with the communications equipment, just the computers. We have not upgraded them in at least 4 to 5 years. So, you know, it's time. They're running a little bit slower, as am I. And all of us. I'm just, so. I wish it only cost me $6,000 to get an upgrade, but. All right. Now, I know Councilor Healy had questions of that I tried to answer. I don't know. Do I need to answer those now?
I handed that out to the
Okay.
council, and Councilor Haley will get your responses as well.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about RMS?
I would.
Do you have a
couldn't think of
question?
anything
I
else
have-
I'd
I
want
have
to
a
talk
question.
about.
Can Bill ask a question before you go on?
Absolutely.
It's more a question for Paul. We're exploring cloud technology. How does the computer equipment upgrade that the police department seeks going to be integrated with our commitment to using the cloud? Or
I-
unless if you can answer that, Chief, I'm just,
I may not have the best answer, but I can tell you that the information, and we may not know the exact answer you're looking for, but the information that is entered into our computers is not, we are not allowed to store any of that information on a cloud right now.
Okay.
Because we have certain restrictions through the state for that information.
okay.
So that's why it has to be stored within our police department and through the state. If that makes sense. I will look into it more to get a better answer for you, to see what kind of
that's a really good
information we can.
The other question is the police department equipped with the backup drive so that all the information that you're storing is going onto a backup drive? And is that backup drive currently adequate for the police needs as it is right now?
It is right now. And that kind of leads into the RMS, Records Management System that we're talking about. We are backed up right now through Town Hall. Well, not through Town Hall, but over at Town Hall. And we're looking, and we've formed a committee, because I think we have talked about this last year about our Records Management System. And everything that they've looked at, and all the information we've received, specifically from IMC, which I think we're all familiar with, is IMC is no longer going to be the go-to vendor. They are falling by the wayside. So my fear is we're going to say, okay, let's go to IMC and upgrade our antiquated system that we have, and they're not going to be there anymore, and we're going to be in the same spot we are right now. We're behind the 8 ball. We have been for many years with this. So the state of New Hampshire has not released who their vendor is that they're going to. As soon as that is released, we're going to have a better answer on who we're going to go with. But more likely than not, it will not be IMC, which I think a lot of the departments now are here. But even we talked to Nashua, and you might be you're on the committee. You might be able to answer this a little bit better. Everybody is going away from IMC, just as we were thinking we were going to be going to IMC. Everybody is going away from it.
I could have missed something, but I think we went from communications basically in discussing our redundant, several days worth of redundant information. Like it's the anti-ransomware software. They are a part of it. And I think you
Combined both.
You moved into the capital expense, and I'm not sure everybody caught that.
Okay.
So Bill's question had to do with the anti-ransomware to an
Correct, but
extent.
and if I'm jumping the gun, just tell me that probably shouldn't say that. If I'm jumping the opportunity, then I'll hold my questions, because my concern in the grander scheme of things is the police department being able to provide information not only to your prosecutor but other people that are seeking specific information in terms of the reports that our officers are required to do when they're called upon to investigate a situation. So
I guess the short answer would be it is backed up.
Okay.
Most of our information is backed up. However, and I think that's why I made that transition, because our record management system now that we have, if we lose something, which often happens, we have to go through our vendor, which is Crime Track, and contact them. They have the information. We don't physically have it anywhere here. But as far as files, and that's what I was talking about.
which is why it circles back to the computer upgrades. And using the iCloud technology and having
correct
the backup server to download in case you have some sort of failure.
Correct.
Okay.
Peter?
Yeah, Chief, I was gonna hit on that too, because, Crime Track is a Model T compared to what's going on out there. And I can hope you guys can kind of get a direction before next budget and get going, because that was old 3 years ago. So I'm glad to hear that. Just a quick question. I wanted to, okay.
It's in the budget this year.
Yep.
To pay for it. Oh, sorry. It's in the budget to pay for it. I just wanted to let you know. It's just, coming out of capital reserve fund. So we're not postponing actually putting into the budget, so that when the state makes their determination as to what this new thing, we'll be ready to go. All
And,
right.
you know, the only thing I can say is that, and having experienced the system is, I think the council understands it, but anybody out there, they hear all this talk of software and programs and everything, and do we really need it? Police department really needs it. That's ancient software. I was surprised you could even find people to help Crime Track anymore. So, but a
It's hard.
question aside is, how many part-time dispatchers do we have?
We have
2 right now.
2.
2? Okay.
And one works a particular shift and one works to fill in.
Yeah, any chance you could bring more on for help for that, to cover some of this overtime issues and stuff?
Well, it's definitely, I mean, that's certainly a possibility, always to bring in more.
Yeah, just,
And as with anything else, it's difficult to find them, but it's not to say we can't.
That's the hardest part.
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, the difficulty is paying them.
Mm-hmm.
If the overtime is 20 or 30,000, you're not gonna get a full-time dispatcher for that much, so. It's a balancing act, right?
That's all I have for communication.
So the RMS that you were talking about is to bring up the fact that you're paying for that 300,000 out of capital reserve. But
Correct.
that's in this budget.
That is in this budget. Again, we're not trying to drag our feet. We're just waiting for the state to come up with who their vendor is. So, they're dragging their feet.
I can't imagine. It never happens, does it? Okay, any other questions on communications? Bill?
Yeah. Chief Roy, can you talk to me about the $8,000 that's been allocated for the base stations and repeaters? Is that going to enhance our ability to cover the town from all points? Are we trying to fill in any gaps as it relates to to harmonize some of the repeaters that are out there so that if you have a police officer that's down and Harris Pond needs to talk to somebody at South Babusick Lake Road, they're going to be able to get in touch with that individual?
Yes, and what we have done is Captain Marquis actually recently he had gone out with our vendor for our communications equipment. And they went through different areas in town to try the portable radios and where we needed more coverage for the officers so that there were no, they call them dead spots, I think. And what we have found with some upgrades on certain equipment, that no matter what we do, there's still going to be some spots that our radios just don't work. And that's just a fact of life, and it's always been that way, and certainly not that we want it to be that way, but the terrain, how the distance, everything's got to be a straight line between voters and antennas, and sometimes there's things that are in the way. So we did make a few upgrades from.
Well, we have the digital lines.
So our digital lines, we did make a few upgrades, and it has helped. We don't find, I'm going to knock on wood again, we don't find that we have those dead spots as frequently as we used to. And again, certain spots still do. But, we are moving we are moving in a much better direction than we ever have before when it comes to the quality because of the voter upkeep and the antennas that we have.
Just to follow up, and I know it's a different department, but is it fair to say that your experience is also similar to the fire department, that there are specific dead spots in town that impact not just police but fire?
So I certainly won't speak for them.
No, I don't want you to. I'm just saying.
However, a firefighter did go with Captain Marquis to test the same areas, and again, they have the same problem.
Okay.
And it's.
It's not 100%.
It's just not, and I don't think it would ever, unless somebody comes up with some new technology, I don't think, but they also run on an analog system. We run on a digital system. So we're going to have better reception through our digital system than they will through an analog system.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Eileen?
Paul and I had a very long meeting, coincidentally, today with the fire department to talk about their communications issues. And they had some really interesting actual fixes that could happen. One of the things that they had said was that one of our, is it a voter? On the mall? One of the antenna is on the mall, is actually on a flat building at the mall, where if, apparently we're having issues, maybe you guys aren't, but the fire department is having issues getting in touch with OME, Ospey Mountain Equipment, who are our vendors for the Motorola radios, and it's almost like a franchise area, so they're not necessarily responsive to the fire department's requests. But one of the things that was thought of about the issue that was the most concerning to them was the southeast section, very south, east Harris Pond kind of area, where, and then up along the river, just because of the sound and the topography, that it could be fairly quickly and easily and effectively corrected if we could get, instead of having that one antenna be on a flat building at the mall, to have it be placed on the tower, on top of all the ledge and all that kind of thing, where that big, huge tower is. And so Captain Dubriel has been contacting OME about getting some answers about placing that there, and OME is not responding to them. So we're working on that. And it's a matter of, all it is really is a matter of getting them to answer. So the owner of the tower has requirements. What is it that you're going to use it for? All these kinds of questions that haven't been answered. And the fire department has been asking them for the past 3 or 4 months just to answer those questions, and they're not answering them, OME. So we're taking care of that. We're taking the bull by the horns on that. We're going to get the answers on that. And hopefully, we, in coordination clearly with the police department, are going to be looking into changing the location of that particular antenna from on top of the flat building to up, obviously the highest, pretty much the highest point. They also said that if that were to happen, just because of where it's located and the fact that even though the river is long and it goes a long way, it will help with that as well, because there are no large mountains or changes in topography as it goes down the river. So.
Tom?
Peter?
Eileen, this problem goes back years ago. And the issue is, in that southeast sector, it drops off. Like, when you go down Mass Road, you notice the hill drops down, and so forth. I'm kind of surprised the lack of response from OME for years. I worked with them, and they were fantastic, and if the police are getting the response, I don't know why the fire wouldn't. But I'm also thinking, if that dip is the problem in that area, and we have an issue getting up the cell tower, if someone can't, or that the cell company won't let us use it, why not put another, not necessarily a retriever, but another unit down by the waste treatment plant, on one of the taller structures there.
Exactly.
They talked about that as well. So
Okay.
we're just in initial, this is brand new, this is all news to me. I've never once heard that we had communication issues. So I'm just hearing this now, and our meeting was just today.
I mean, that
So,
was found to be a weak spot when you go.
Yes.
If anybody had to be down by the river in that area, so.
Okay.
I remember when we talked about dead spots in town, and I thought they were taken care of probably 8-10 years ago. I can't even recall now. So I didn't know were any problems left.
But we're working on it, right?
We are working on it.
Okay.
So the plan, coming back to your $8,000 request, is so the plan is going to be that what you're purchasing is going to make things
Could I just have the line you're looking at?
Sure, absolutely. I'm going back, talking about the communications equipment, $8,000, 8335 on page 46.
It's the maintenance of communications
Maintenance
equipment.
communication equipment. That's what I was talking about originally, Chief.
Right. Right. That, we didn't increase that, that is actually what we've had for the last.
Right, so so it's a service agreement.
Correct, I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong one when we had talked about.
Okay,
That is a service agreement for Ospey Mountain, who we work directly
okay,
with.
so,
And Captain Marquis, if you have any, I mean, he deals with them, very frequently.
Yeah, they're right. We deal with them quite a bit.
And so that pays for them for any questions we have, anything that goes down.
Okay.
They're responsive for us, they come right down, they are.
They're very responsive for us, yeah.
Maybe you need to find out.
I actually, I didn't see that as a fee. I just looked at that as an ongoing line item for what the police department needs to actually make sure that what you're using to communicate with each other out there is up to date and maintained, which is why I had the line of question that I did.
Sure.
So,
Go ahead, Eileen.
The only thing that I wanted to say is, in speaking to the fire department, they feel that maybe the information from the technician that they're speaking to isn't necessarily getting up to the top of the company, and also that the police department is the primary customer. So they realize now that we need to coordinate with the police department and use their relationship to get more responsiveness.
Okay.
I just, the ultimate concern that I have, and I'll say that to you, Mr. Chairman, my colleagues, is that when people call the police department, when people call the fire department, that they know exactly where they're going, and that our first responders and police officers are able to talk with each other.
And we have success in that on our end, and just speaking for us, again, understanding that sometimes there's, for instance, the middle school happens to be one of the areas that it's spotty coverage.
Right.
But understanding that, if we call somebody and they don't answer right away, we make a phone call. And so we are doing everything we can. And I feel confident that, we're maintaining our communications well, and that we're in a good spot.
And hearing about, OME in the relationship with the vendor, I find a little troubling. We are the 8th largest community in this state. And we have a lot of things going on. We're busy, so we need to rely on them to be able to help us out. It's not like we're, Peter crying wolf. When you folks call them, when the fire department call them, we should be getting a response. So I'm not. Okay, I'm not enthralled. I'm not enthralled to hear that, Eileen. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Finley?
I'd like to stick with what Bill was just speaking of, and you may have already mentioned it, Chief, but I could have not heard it, but is the $8,000, that's going to be a maintenance fee, basically?
Correct, it has been. It's a maintenance fee, so that, like, for instance, we have one of the towers that goes down, and we get an alarm. We contact the vendor, and they come down. It's under, so because of the fees we pay, they come down, it's covered, everything's covered under that.
So, because I'm just looking at 1819, is this a new thing, this current budget we're in, is it new for us? Because it shows as 1819 was
Yes,
just over
yeah,
$1,000.
correct, it's new this year.
Okay,
So the
Right.
current one we are in,
yep,
Well,
Yes.
the year we're in right now.
yeah, yep, thank you.
yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
move into police.
You're out.
You're out.
Clear, you're clear.
Wait a minute, I'm not, oh, yeah, okay, never mind.
Picking up on the jargon or what?
Hello?
Hello, hello.
There we go, I'm on, hello.
You're on.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So, again, I go with, same with the police budget, we looked at wants versus needs, and I feel as though we have come forward with what we consider a reasonable request and presentation of our budget. I would, if it's okay with you, like to just go, before we get to personnel, maybe can I go through the other items first? That might seem a little easier, because I do, first time ever, have PowerPoint slides. They're not difficult, but they're, so if we skip over the first one that comes up, which is the officers, if we go to 048203, operating supplies.
8203.
8203. So under operating supplies, you'll see that we've requested a $6,000 increase. $1,000 of that would go towards narcotic supplies, and we're not actually physically talking about narcotics. We're talking about supplies needed for our special investigation unit. If you recall, you were generous enough in 2018 to help us implement our special investigation unit, which has primarily been responsible for reducing what we were seeing as an out of control increase in relation to drug activity in the town. Although it will never go away, and we are doing our best right now at maintaining a comfortable, I don't want to say, we're in a comfortable area. How about we put it that way? We're in a comfortable area where it's still happening every single day. In the last 2 weeks, we were talking about, in the last 2 weeks, our special investigation unit has had 1 to 2 arrests every single day. And, they're going out there and they're concentrating a lot at the hotel areas. We've made significant increase with our partnership with the hotels. They've been more than willing to meet with us, and we've discussed things. Eileen actually came to a meeting that we had with Wood Springs Suites, where they implemented significant changes that helped reduce what we were seeing happening there. So we're definitely moving in the right direction. But unfortunately, because we're moving in the right direction and we're having such success with our unit, supplies go up. And that could be anything from surveillance equipment to although we don't really test so much anymore for narcotics, testing equipment, protective equipment, because as you know, fentanyl is a tremendous problem for everybody in New England, and it requires the officers to have different equipment because we don't want them to become exposed to it, because even just a few granules of fentanyl can be deadly. And we've seen, we do a lot of training with it, and we've seen in other areas where they go in and they're touching, or they're just having some sort of contact, and these officers are immediately having reactions to it. So we're thankful, again, I'm going to knock on wood, that it's not happening here, but it's mostly because we try to do everything we can and give our officers the supplies that they need. So that's where the $1,000 for that comes to. I'm going to let Captain Tarleton talk about the next section, because again, this is his wheelhouse, not mine. $5,000 for ammunition under operating supplies, and I'll explain. He can explain why the $5,000 increase. Oh, yep.
Yeah.
Chief, just talking about the narcotic stuff, and I'm just kind of looking for it here. We have a drug forfeiture account, correct?
Correct.
Where is that currently at right now?
As far as the amount goes,
Yes.
yeah, I don't have the exact amount. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So
So
I mean,
about
can we-
$15,000.
I believe for that purpose, you can draw money from
absolutely,
that fund.
yes.
Correct.
But as you know, a lot of that money to the $15,000 goes, which is not covered under this, goes towards. And not to give away secrets, but when we have undercover operations, we need cash for certain things, and a lot of that money goes towards that. It goes towards significant equipment, surveillance equipment, body wires, that sort of thing, because as you know, those are very costly. So we try to keep that account for those type of things. But yes, this could be drawn from that.
All right. All right, thank you.
Go ahead. You're up.
So the increase in ammunition, so like anything else, the price of ammo is going up every year. And specifically, the Academy is now requiring us to use lead-free frangible ammunition now. not really quite sure. I think it started about a year ago. It had something to do with their range and some splashback that was happening to the trainees, recruits. Some of the fragments were actually coming back, which is a huge issue, needless to say. So we went from having to use just lead-free ammo to lead-free frangible. And frangible basically is, it's once the projectile hits something, it just breaks apart. So you don't have that splashback. But because you're combining those two things together, it's twice the cost of regular practice ammunition, literally twice the cost. So we need that ammunition for our academy recruits. We need that ammunition if we have instructor research. We'll need it for whatever purpose that we need to go there. A recruit, for instance, if we're looking to hire a new officer, a recruit has to go, per recruit is like 2,000 rounds of this stuff specifically. So that's a huge cost. I'm hoping that maybe they make some tweaks to their range where we don't have to go and buy this ammunition, because I can tell you that we're not the only ones that are suffering from this, but it is what it is right now. So that's a huge expense for us, not to mention the amount of training that we're trying to, the added training we're trying to do with our officers. Our SRT officers specifically, we try and get them out at least 3 times a year on top of the annual training that we're doing. So it's an added need, and it's be much appreciated if we get that money in there.
So the state or the academy is run by the state, or?
Correct.
And they're just putting additional requirements on
This,
what you send in
Yeah.
with your recruits, with your
Yes.
students?
the notice came out and it said effective immediately. I want to say it was about a year ago. This is the ammo that you have to, and it was sudden. So we had to scramble and buy this stuff, and so we need it in our supply for training there until maybe things change, I hope.
This doesn't affect our range, right?
It does not affect our range, but any and all training at the academy, there's no way around it. This is the stuff that we have to use. So,
But they didn't give any explanation of what the sudden need or requirement was, or?
it had to do with some of the splashback. So basically, guys
Well,
were
the frangible, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, but the lead requirement is that an unusual
The
requirement?
lead-free has
or-
always been a requirement there for, I mean, I can't remember if it was a requirement when we went through back in the mid-90s.
Oh, okay.
But it's,
Just outed us how old we were.
but, so the lead-free stuff was always, I mean, it was a little bit more than the standard practice. But this, adding the frangible aspect to it is really bumped up the cost. It's really expensive stuff. It's twice the cost of what our normal practice ammunition runs us per case. So,
Okay.
sorry, I hope
No,
that
I mean, there's nothing you
explains.
can do about it, but it just seems, it does seem a little unusual, but that a firing range would suddenly have problems with fragmented bullets bouncing back. Why
agree.
why
I don't know
isn't
if
that
it's-
absorbed into whatever you're shooting at? But
Know if it's an age thing, if it's a backdrop thing, I'm not really sure. I do know that they're looking into it because I'm sure they're hearing from a bunch of departments, you know, so that's kind of where we're at right now.
okay.
So moving on now to 8330, which, oh, I'm sorry, I skipped 8270. You'll see an increase of $600. That's simply for the Deputy Chief LeVake, who, by the way, is actually in training right now down in Quantico at the FBI National Academy. That is for the New Hampshire Police Association, increased cost for the membership for $600. Travel and meetings and training and education, if I could do again both of these. So that's 8330 and 8352. Travel and meetings, we requested an increase of $2,500, and training and education, $6,500. Again, I'm going to say that the purpose of this for us especially is our department is extremely fresh, new. We have 19 officers with less than 5 years on. It's a significant amount. In order for us, to keep these officers professionally trained, we require them to be experts in everything, from domestic violence, laws, sometimes they act as counselors, mental health. We require them to run the accident investigation, everything. Everything you can imagine an officer does, we require that. And with a newer department, it requires us to send more people to training. And again, the academy, run by the state, not run by us, is limited through their financial constraints right now. They have the same classes all the time. There's nothing really changing with those, and they're not as quality as perhaps they could be. And that's something that we are working with, and I am personally, and the chiefs in the area, we are working with the academy. They have some new leadership changes which hopefully will bring about some change in how they operate. So we're, again, required to do this. Our supervisors are new to being supervisors. They may not be new to police work, but they're new to being supervisors. I personally want our leaders of the future to learn now how to run our department. And in order to do that, we must send people out of the Merrimack area, sometimes out of New Hampshire, sometimes out of New England, to get the training that I feel will bring them up to the caliber that they should be for our town. As these guys will tell you, I'm very demanding when it comes to the leadership of our department, because I know that they are the future, and they build their habits now for what will come. And we are in such a good spot. Our community really, I think, is behind us and likes us because we try to go the extra mile in order to have the quality people. So the training and the travel, it's a necessary evil of what we do, but it is a requirement. So. Okay.
I don't think you're going to get a lot of pushback.
All right,
on
I keep
that
waiting
kind of
for
stuff,
the
but
answer.
I appreciate your
I know it's
concern.
because you don't want me to take my hat off, but I'm not. All right, so
What I would say is, last year, we made a commitment to the fire department to provide training for specific fire types to get their certification to be, paramedics? Okay, so if we're gonna do it for the fire department, we sure as heck need to be doing it for the police department, different skill set, but it parallels each other. The concept is the same. So I agree with the philosophy, Chief.
Thank you. So the before we get to personnel, 8503 vehicles. And if I could just preempt this by saying, I understand there were some questions about if one of the vehicles, last year was our year for 4 vehicles, this year being our year for 3 vehicles. Last year, we made the determination and purchased a pickup truck. And this is on me, this is solely falls on my shoulders. I did not specify when we were purchasing the 4 vehicles that we were going to purchase a pickup truck. And I apologize for that. It's certainly not something I was trying to keep from anybody. I can give you a list of reasons why we utilize this truck. It's not used for patrol purposes, and the fact that we're out there trying to stop cars with it, that is not the purpose of it. It is driven solely by the lieutenants. And obviously, if something happens in front of them, it is equipped with lights and it's marked. It's marked up in a way that we are trying to test for. We have one traffic car in town that does all of our traffic enforcement, and we're trying to test the lettering on it. It's reflective. It's very bright at night, and it says police as opposed to having nothing on it at all. But I just wanted to put out there that I do apologize for that. I certainly was not trying to, in no way, shape, or form, keep that from you. So this year we're seeking 3 vehicles. SUVs, they're the Ford Explorer SUVs that will be placed right into the patrol division. Ford is having a tough time coming out with their cars. We're very far behind. We're just now getting our cars for this year, which we normally get sometime in July and August. So we're hoping that we're hoping that Ford moves a little bit quicker. The one other item that you'll notice as the normal $120,000 for the vehicles is $20,000 for a motorcycle. And again, I'm just going to let Captain Tarleton, because this is his fun part, go.
So the motorcycle that we have at the PD is a 2000 Harley Davidson. It's got about 40,000 miles on it. I think Councilor Albert was probably a sergeant or a lieutenant when we received delivery of that. So the motorcycle's old. He's not old. The motorcycle is old.
Thank you.
Really? So ABS, traction control, stability control, this motorcycle has none of that stuff. And every motorcycle that's out there right now, all the new stuff has it. And I think in the interest of safety for our motorcycle officers, and right now we have 2, I think the right thing is to replace this motorcycle. It's not used in a patrol capacity anymore, but it is used. We use it frequently, specifically during the summer months. We have the road races. We have 3 main races in town. We have a triathlon. We have the Ribfest 5K. There's a sparkler race and a multitude of parades. So we have a use, we have a need, and we continue to use the older motorcycle, but I think the time has come, we think the time has come to replace it. And we're also considering the possibility of maybe mixing it up a little bit and going with something a little different, which would be a dual-purpose motorcycle. And when I say that, I'm not talking about an enduro, like a dirt bike with street bike tires. I'm talking about a road-worthy, road-capable motorcycle that's also off-road capable. And the purpose behind that I think it would give us more bang for our buck. We could use it for the things I just explained. However, in certain instances, we have search and rescue efforts. Somebody gets lost in a park. We can just have one of our guys jump on this thing right away. They leave the PD, they get out there and get the search going right away. We would still deploy the trailer with the OHRVs and whatever other equipment we need. But this would allow us the opportunity to do that as well. So it's something we're considering. We're not committed to it yet, but it's definitely something that we're considering, so.
Peter?
Okay, Matt, there's 2 officers authorized to ride the bike now.
That's correct.
I'm sorry, Captain. I have a hang-up with this because there's a reason we had that bike so long. One, we originally at one point had 6 officers that rode the motorcycle, and they were pretty hardcore. And we're out there doing motor vehicle enforcement and so forth, and that kind of waned off. We have 2 now. And there was a school of thought that at one point that it's actually safer to patrol in a car. And I get it. I get the whole thing about the motorcycle, but I just feel like at this point, $20,000 for a bike that's not gonna get that much use. It just, there's a lot of things I support of what the police department does, but this one I'm having a hard time with. And you know, it seemed like we were trailing away from it. And I don't know, if we could spend $20,000, I'd rather have you spend it on something else. I'm not really in support of this, I'm gonna be very honest about it. And you know, I know that we got a couple guys who are great, they love to ride the bike, but even then, it didn't get out that much. I'd really love to see, you know, how many times it got out over the year. I know it comes out for the parade and stuff, and people love it. And you're right about the old bike. The old bike it's time to go, but, so I'll leave it at that.
Can I just speak to really quick?
Absolutely.
I just think that that bike that we have, the motorcycle that we have, is again extremely old. And what we were finding, and after doing a lot of talking to the officers, is that they just feel unsafe on that particular bike because of the ABS and the you know, we tried to go to headsets so they don't have to talk on the radio and change those things. The officers that are coming on now, not certainly that we would take, you know, a person with a year on, but the people with a few more years on show an interest in this type of bike when we could use it. So that's the only, I do agree with you that we've seen it fall with a lot of things. We've seen it fall. And this was, it brings the interest a little bit more with a newer bike, if that helps at all, which I understand. I understand completely what you're saying, though.
And you know, I know what you, and I hate, but I just, to me, I'd say if we go down this road, I'd want to see some increased usage. I want it documented, some increased usage on the bike in the good weather. I mean, if you're going to commit to this bike and we're going to commit to $20,000, I'd say that I'd like to see more interest in, are other folks going to ride it? Are they going to get out there and use it for patrol purposes and so forth, as well as other just special events? So, I mean, that's
Thank you, I appreciate your feedback.
Finley?
Chief, I have,
They're not on your head.
what's that?
They weren't on your head.
I know it. I gotta fight. It's a nuisance in my life. It's the
Me
one
too.
thing that I hate.
Tell me about it.
Because I don't know where to put it. I came up here, I have 2 dents from this, so it's terrible. And if I had hair like those guys at the other end of the table. On my, I have the electronic form here in front of me, and what I show is, it's under 8503, it says patrol SUVs, it says 4. So I'm imagining that number just wasn't changed down to 3.
That's correct, it should be 3.
Okay, but then I have the comment box, and the first comment box by you says, Chief, it says 3 patrol SUVs, 1 admin SUV. But, so that's old. So you mean 3 SUVs?
If I could, we talked about an admin vehicle, and that got taken out. So that, I'm sorry that you have that copy. You should have one that just has 3 patrol vehicles, SUVs, that's it,
Okay.
period.
But then it goes to the next comment box. It says that they're $35,000 apiece, and 35,000 times 3 doesn't add up, and 4 didn't add up either, so.
No, you're right, and I'm not good at math, but I know that that does not add up.
The vehicles themselves with $35,000, fit up is about $5,000 on each vehicle. So it comes out to $40,000. The vehicles themselves are
Okay.
35 to buy.
All right,
To fit them up with the police, the logos, the radios, everything that they need in them is about $5,000. The light bar. It's
We
about
transfer
$5,000.
the equipment that we have in the older cars into the newer cars, and
Right,
that
okay.
costs, and we bring it to the vendor to do it, and that costs, that's
so it is
$5,000.
40,000 per vehicle, so the math actually lines up, but the comments did not.
That's correct.
Okay.
I am not hitting it out of the park tonight with my,
Thanks for asking that.
Chief, are we still using MHQ?
no, we actually use Global in Hudson.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah, it was, they're certainly much easier, it's closer,
Yep.
so, and a little bit quicker. All right, so now if I could go to 8199.
Do you have a question? You want to ask it before she moves on?
Yeah, if you could, just circling back on the motorcycle piece. Councilor Albert had talked about when he was in his role on the Conservation Commission about increasing enforcement in our conservation areas. And it seems to me there's the possibility of being able to have a level of ubiquity with this vehicle in places like Greater Woods and Wildcat Falls and Horse Hill, because they are all single track for the most part. You cannot get an ATV in there. You cannot get a four-wheel drive vehicle in there. So if something, God forbid, happens in there, I would think having a two-wheeled vehicle that has that level of mobility to be able to get in there would certainly have a level of utility that the force could use. My question to you would be, if we were to look at that utility of the motorcycle, would that increase a level of enforcement that you don't have right now that we would need to take into consideration?
Absolutely, and I think one of the things that we had talked about before when it comes to Conservation Commission is getting our people out there, but unfortunately, the only tool that we have, because our OHRVs don't always fit on the trails, is getting our bicycles out there. However, my problem is, and it kind of goes into what we're going to talk about next, is when we have 3 officers on the street, and we're asking someone to take a bicycle and go 1 mile, 2 miles, 3 miles into the woods. If something happens, it takes them time to come back, get to the car, put the bike on the car. And so we've shied away from that unless we've had enough personnel on the shift to say, hey, you know what, we can afford to have you go out on your bicycle. This is actually allowed on the street, and it is much quicker. Although we have, all of our officers are in shape, it can certainly drive faster than a guy, or a person, rather, an officer can on a bicycle. So it does have that flexibility of going into areas where we normally cannot, just because of what we have.
Yeah, I mean, knowing the trails, I mean, Greater Woods and Wildcat Falls, it's a little bit more compact, so you're able to, I would think you'd be able to get in and out pretty quickly, but it's Horse Hill. There are some pretty remote spots on Horse Hill that, you know, you need to be able to, if something, God forbid, happens at a location, you need to be able to get in there quickly.
Absolutely.
So I think, based on that alone, that it's something that I would hope that the council will consider as we move forward with our budget. So
Thank you.
Eileen's going to jump in.
Hi, please.
Are you finish? Because I have a different topic, so,
I'm finished.
okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
So, this is, you're gonna think this is like super duper weird, and, but I have these presentations here for you, and they smell a great deal like a skunk. I mean, they're making my eyes water over here. So I don't know what there is.
That was another ploy. We
Literally,
sprayed 'em with
literally
skunk.
a skunk. So if you want copies
guys
of
need new
it,
ink
you're
or
welcome
something?
to have it.
I would agree, they
No,
smell like a skunk.
No, they really, they're,
I'll take it.
all right.
I need to
Here you
wake
go.
up.
Come over and get it.
If anybody is
Pass
just
them
tuning in
along.
and watching us all smell paper, we've all lost our mind.
They smell just like, very strongly like a skunk.
Yeah.
So I need some,
Hey,
I need
Peppy,
an
you're right.
I need an explanation for that. I'm just kidding.
I was going to.
Pepe Le Pew.
Happy Le Pew.
Yeah, you can. You did.
Keep the paper.
I did.
Right?
It's okay because literally it's 3 slides, and I didn't want to overwhelm you with anything, and
Well, you're overwhelming.
You're over.
that's how fast I'll move
So
along.
just what do you have in your ink budget is what I want to
Yeah,
know.
not enough.
Not enough.
Where they're keeping the paper.
It's, yeah. It is funny. I'm going to have to look into that. So
Follows my fingers.
we,
Don't stick them in your nose.
as we now I can't move on from the skunk smell. As we have discussed over probably the last couple of years, and I've been doing this particular job since 2017, and I know that you have all listened to me and been gracious, and I know we all are on the same page and have an understanding of where the town is going as far as growth goes. We are requesting to add 2 additional officers to our force, bringing our total up to 44. I'm really briefly, because I know that we've talked about it, and the reasoning behind you, again, we're gracious enough in 2018 to see our need to add 2 officers for our special investigation unit. And I think we had talked about, the need and seeing it follow through. And I think our calls for service have reduced since we've added it to the hotels. So it is working. It's something that we have to keep going at and doing every day. So I, again, appreciate that. Moving toward the patrol division again, as you can see on this tiny itty bitty, please don't try to read the streets map. This is best we could do, so I apologize. So in town, we have always, so I've been here since 1991, and we have always had 4 sectors. However, we've never made it mandatory that we staff 4 sectors. We have it mandatory. There's always been a minimum mandatory of 3 sectors and a supervisor. So our calls are all logged through geo-tracking. So for instance, somebody on Jessica Drive calls up and has a complaint. Well, that would fall in the Sector 2 area, but 72% of the time, we do not cover the sector.
You don't cover it.
Yeah, we highlighted it to make it easier. So the highlighted sector is 2. So we went through, and I'm not just saying this number, we went through and looked back for 2019. No?
I just think that it's really important for people out there to understand that that sector is not unprotected.
Correct.
All right?
So I was, yeah.
So let's be really clear about that.
No, and that's one of the things I was going to.
Okay, thank you.
Now you're jumping me, Eileen. So Sector 2 is just not staffed. However, what we do is, so you have an understanding where Sector 2 is. Not on my last slide. I don't want to, again, overwhelm you. So going back, and I did 2018, 2019 to show you that the Sector 2, which is also highlighted, has as many, if not more, calls as the other 3 sectors that are staffed. It does not mean that we just don't respond to, or it's that those calls, or that we don't patrol the area that was highlighted before. What that means is the other 3 sectors have to absorb that 8,416 calls that are in Sector 2. And again, that sector is only staffed 72% of the time. It is my hope, and we certainly would need many more people to staff it 24/7. However, there's a large bug now. However, you saw it. However, adding 2 people, and our concentration would be the day shift and the second shift, so 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. and 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. It is my desire to make those 2 shifts a minimum staffing of 4 sectors and a supervisor, minimum. So that those calls for service are covered, as you can see, just as the other ones are. We're not taking away from the other sectors and the other places in town. You'll see that Sector 3, which has never ever had more calls than anywhere else, it had always been Sector 1. But Sector 3 encompasses the mall and the hotels, as you can see from our little map. So what's happening is the calls are becoming increasingly dangerous. We require our officers, 2 officers, to go to hotel calls because we don't know what we're going to find when we get there. So now you're taking Sector 4 and Sector 3 and they're going to the hotel call, and usually a supervisor goes to make sure that everything is okay. You're leaving one person in town to cover the rest of it. And if, God forbid, a domestic comes in, which requires 2 people, we don't have 2 people to send. So we're juggling a lot. I am concerned for the safety of our officers. Having the ability to have 2 officers go to certain calls is important to me. I think that, I told them from the beginning, I want them all to go home safely every night. And by adding that person, it's not the end all be all. Anything can happen. But at least I know, and they know, that I'm not at a domestic by myself and have to do this. Because as you know, domestic situations can become very volatile very quickly. The calls are more complicated. The investigations are more complicated, more time consuming. And it's my desire, again, to make sure that we're doing everything we can, not only for the citizens of this town, but for the officers that protect us each and every day throughout the shifts. Eventually, I think we're going to have to look at 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, having 4 sectors covered and a supervisor. But for right now, I think having at least the first shift and second shift covered by 4 officers and a supervisor minimum is the way to go. Can I, you're going to jump me again? Is this where, Eileen, go ahead.
Sure, go ahead, Eileen.
You said that 72% of the time it's covered, and I thought you had said that it was not covered before.
I meant to say not covered, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's fine. So 72% of the time,
It's not
Sector 2 does not have somebody.
Although we do cover it with
No,
one of the
right.
other 3.
I know,
It's
but-
not, it's not, a person is not assigned to that sector.
So, it just sounded like it was, a small percentage of the time it was
No,
uncovered,
it's
and
the other
now
way
we're
around.
hiring, yeah,
The other way.
okay,
See,
great.
again, I'm all
Perfect.
totally off my game.
I appreciate that, but can you, you said briefly that it's always had 4 sectors in town and we've never covered them. Why do we still have 4 sectors? What's the reasoning behind 4 versus going down to 3 sectors and broadening those areas a little bit
Well,
so that you can claim you're covering them all?
well, we could claim it, and that's a good question. Yeah, it's, I guess I don't have a great answer for you, and I hate to say that it's because it's always the way it's always been done, but it's because there are occasions where we do have enough people, 27% of the time, to have 4 sectors covered, and that's how the town was divided as far as the sector goes back way before I started, and I would assume before you started.
Can I jump in here? I don't want to.
No, go ahead. Hopefully,
Sure.
do you have a better answer
If
than
she
I do?
passes to you, go ahead.
First of all, Chief, thank you. Thank you for suggesting this. This has been an issue, and you're looking at a map with lines drawn on it. Basically, there were 3 sectors out there for years, and you had a supervisor. You have a supervisor. That individual, I had both roles, as a patrolman in this system and as a supervisor. And for years, it bothered me, and I know it bothered a number of folks, but we were always trying to be wise with the budget, much like the department is now, but this town has grown. One domestic will require 2 to 3 officers at least, and it's not infrequent that you have a car accident. There's 2 more officers. People, and so you need this extra individual. I don't want to get lost in the lines between the sectors, was really prior to this, the whole town's been covered, and I'm not trying to say the chief, to disagree with the chief, but it was 3 sectors. And then a supervisor would come out when they had time to get out there, to help out. This has been long overdue, and I firmly support it because this town is growing up. And I see, like a lot of people complain about, I see a lot of the buildings going on. We're talking 1,400, whether it's residential houses and everything else. That's going to increase the calls for service, and we have to keep up with it rather than waiting until 5 years from now and the police department comes to us and says, I need 8 officers, you know? So I support that. I think too, Chief, you know, and folks at home may not understand why the sectors are shaped the way they are. Why not just go whoop, whoop, like that? And maybe for the folks at home, you could kind of just let them know. But I do want to come out and say this has been a long time coming. And however the council chooses, I support it. And I think it's needed, especially in light of the growth in the town. So that's where I stand on that. But Chief, if you could just let.
Absolutely. So the sectors are divided in this way because at the time, and again, it's certainly not something that we can reevaluate and change, but it had to do with the calls for service and the amount of people living in different areas. So Sector 3, you'll notice, is probably our smallest one, but that's where most of the businesses are. Sector 4 has a large conservation area in it that doesn't require, and it's mostly, other than the short distance on 101A, mostly residential. Sector 1, again, is mostly residential, but does have the businesses on Route 3 all the way to the Bedford line. So at the time, I believe, and again, it wasn't, and I'm not trying to fluff this off on somebody else, but it wasn't me who made the designation of the sectors. And I hate to say it's because it's the way it has always been, because it's certainly not the way our philosophy now. But it's all done because of the volume of either residents and businesses combined, if that makes any sense.
Thank you.
So, and again, it's certainly something we actually talked about it when we were trying to do our little map, which was challenging, about changing the sectors, because as you can see, Sector 3 is pretty bombarded with calls, and that's 24 hours a day. It's not, you know,
Yeah.
although the calls may be slightly less sometimes, it's 24 hours a day. So I just, in the growth part of it, you know, more traffic, more residents requires more time, more officers are going to be needed. One of the most frustrating things, and I'm going to give you an example because I bet you all have experienced it, when there's traffic problems on Greeley Street, when the Fidelity traffic is blocking the intersection. Anybody ever been stuck not being able to go through because people block the intersection?
But that new lighting is helping.
It's helping.
It is
It's
helping.
definitely helping. However, it's hard for us to do enforcement when we have to take calls. We can't, it's give and take. We can't do it all. And that's just an example, and that's only going to increase. I keep hitting my mic.
Finley, you had a question?
Actually, it's, you know, the need for the officers is the need for the officers. But what I was quick comment on is your different sectors. It's not like a voting ward, and you have. I'm looking at sector
Gerrymander.
Sector 3, where you have, it appears you go down Amherst Road, and why you would go down the middle of Amherst Road as opposed to going up to the, you know, the conservation areas and include that in a sector. And again, it doesn't dispute or, you know.
It all has to do with roads and
That's what's crazy about it, because one officer, if you stick to your sector, which
Can't take the other side of the road.
Right,
And
I know it doesn't work that way, but it just is.
This is yours.
This
This isn't like
down the middle of a road.
This isn't like when there's an accident in Nashville and they kick it over into Merrimack. This is, you know, I'm just kidding. They don't do that.
No, you're not kidding.
Yeah.
You're not kidding.
Yeah, and that's really all. It comes to roads. But there's been many times, and I think Councilor Arbor can attest to this, that Sector 4 is on 101A and an emergency comes in and the other 2 sectors are tied up. They could have to go to the Bedford line in Sector 1 because we don't have anybody else. And so it's frustrating. It's, you know, we do, I think our department and the officers that we've entrusted in our safety are doing a phenomenal job.
Sure.
But now we're just trying, as you have done for us, and we have talked about, and you understand, We're just trying to do the best for them. I will say this one last thing. In order to, you'll notice the price, geez. You'll notice, now I'm off buying things. You'll notice the amount that we're requesting is $154,247, and that is because in order to offset it, we understand that this is a burden on the taxpayers. We understand. Starting one in July and starting another one in January would, obviously, there's a savings of, the over $50,000 to help. It'll help us with academy and training. And I think it's a good alternative, unless, of course, you want them both in July, but that's up to you.
Okay, Bill, you had a question before we get too far off?
I got a couple, Mr. Chairman. To your calls for service, Chief, under Sector 3, you had stated that previously Sector 1 was historically was the largest volume.
The one nobody wanted.
The one nobody wanted. Is it fair to say that Sector 3, that 40% of those calls relate to the extended stay hotels in the MPO, and that if you actually take out that 40%, Sector 1 is still... I hate to parse it like that, but
40% might be a little high. I'd have to go back and look at those numbers, but there is a significant
Is
increase.
it possible that that we could be provided with a breakdown of out of the 14,000 calls in Sector 3, how many were to MPO in the extended stay? I just want to.
I can't tell you actually for the mall because I do have that one. It was a little over 1,000 calls in 2019.
Just 1,000 calls. Wow. I think that's good, all things considered.
Sorry.
3 calls a day, 7 days.
3 calls a day, 7 weeks. Yeah, that's impressive.
It is just a little over. I'll get you the exact number,
Okay.
but it is just a little over 1,000
Okay.
calls.
The second question goes to the 2 new offices. Are you looking to hire 2 young kids that you're going to put into the academy and then train them the Merrimack way? Or are you looking to post and bring in somebody experienced, or one of each? Have you thought about?
Well, I would love to be able to hire certified officers to save us that money. I would love it. And we tried to do that just recently, and we got 3 or 4 applications. This time we are hiring again to fill positions and of retirements, and we have just over 30. When I first started, I took a test with hundreds of people. It's just, police work isn't glamorous, and although I would love to hire a certified officer because the ones that we have hired are working out fantastic, I just don't think that we're trying to do the best we can to attract certified officers, but we'll take the best we can. And just because they're certified doesn't necessarily mean they're the best.
No, I
So
understand.
whatever, if it's a green person out of college, or if it's somebody with some life, whatever it is, that's what we'll go for. But ideally, in my, again, perfect world, certified officers are knocking down the door to come to Merrimack. Don't know why.
With Officer Murray's retirement, has the SRO position been filled?
So his position at the high school's been filled, but his position in the patrol division has not been filled. That's the testing. We have testing coming up on February 1st for that.
So my next question is, how many vacancies exist in the
Right now,
police?
2.
Right now,
2.
2? And
We had an officer leave police work altogether. He just had decided that it just wasn't for him, and
That's
I don't
fair.
blame him. And
anybody out on leave, disability, anything like, it's just,
right now, we have one person that is out with a back injury,
Okay.
a supervisor. Certainly, we're hoping for his sake alone but I think we all know where back injuries go, and hopefully.
okay. And I noticed that the reason why I'm asking is the overtime request appears to be kind of static, which I think reflects
is.
the commitment of
We're
of
really,
being able to keep people,
again, we went want versus need too, and
Right.
and for us, having the officers was certainly more important than trying to fill it with overtime.
Okay. Chief, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Finley?
If I could, I don't need it for tonight, but if I could have an email with the staffing situations, how
Absolutely.
it all runs out, what shifts are covered.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you.
Absolutely. And I don't want you to think I'm not writing this down. Someone's writing it down for me.
You can go watch it stream.
I have people for
She
that.
has people, yeah.
because it wouldn't be
Peter?
by memory.
Eric just looked around and said, I'm not, oh.
Yeah.
I think we all need to keep in mind too that from date of, well, testing date to getting them out of the academy graduating, and then even getting through FTO, you're looking at a year, because, getting them into the academy, they're still only running 2 academies a year, and those are 14 weeks, and so, so now you've got 2 unfilled. I'm sure, nothing's written in stone yet regarding this budget, but as you just put together a list, you kind of prepare, I guess. I am correct with that?
Absolutely. And we're hoping that this process, if we are allowed to hire 2 people, we're hoping that this process where we take 2 people will also be able to hopefully have a list so that we can say, we know that we're going to have an opening, hopefully if I know there's a big step in between then, and if the town approves it in July. And I don't know if it's feasible to think we could keep somebody, until December. I would hope, January, I would hope, but people are being scooped up left and right because everyone's in the same situation as us.
So I think we all have to keep that in mind, is if we hire the new officer, it's that 12-month period
Yeah,
at least.
there's a ramp-up period.
So, just a thought is, I understand, a couple agencies, Chief, and I don't know if you're aware of it, but in order to shorten the time period of the academy, when they hire a new employee, a new officer, they're doing all the end of the academy stuff, the Homeland Security certifications and everything, in that couple-month run-up before they get into the academy. They're getting them they're trying to get all that done to shorten the academy.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, there's a couple departments that have approached that. I'm not sure how they worked it out with the police academy, but it might be something to think about too. So,
No,
Do you know
absolutely.
what departments?
I thought it was Londonderry.
Okay.
Thank you. We'll definitely look into that. I forgot one
Okay.
slide.
Pardon?
I forgot one slide.
So, yeah, okay. I don't want to belabor the sectors, but it just seems like the sectors are kind of a deterrent to people that are watching something like this, thinking, well, we're not being covered or something like that. So you effectively have 3 officers and a lieutenant out there covering the town on a
Correct.
given time period.
Correct.
Minimum.
So what we do is we push, so when we don't have that sector 2, we push sector 1 down and sector 3 up.
Right, so I mean,
So they
it
just cover
shrinks
the
down to
calls.
very narrow.
Correct. So it makes their area larger, and obviously it's more you're adding additional calls to the sectors, and
the-
again, goes to the response time.
Point is that you need people, because if you send 2 or 3 to the mall, or you send 2 to a domestic, or even a third,
So our
you've got
requirement.
nothing left. And so
Correct. Our policy is for a domestic situation and for the hotels, but especially domestic situations, we must send 2 officers. An officer does, unless something is drastic is happening inside, an officer doesn't go in. 2 officers and a supervisor. The supervisor has to go to make sure that everything is proper. And I got to be honest, again, with a newer department, our supervisors are taxed too, because we make them go to, even if it's we say simple, it may not be simple to somebody else, but even if it's a disorderly person, the supervisors go to make sure that these officers are doing everything that we require them to do in the way we require them to do it.
So, and when you bring in new officers, that's going to take, a training officer is going to be going along with them for some length of time as well, right?
So as an example, we have an officer that just graduated in December from the academy, and he is with his training officer right now. So everything that training officer, he works his schedule, everything he does, the trainee does. So there's 2 people. However, we do not count that person as a, I
As an
don't,
on-shift person, so it's
Jonathan, if
overtime.
you're watching, I don't mean this in a bad way, but we don't count him as a person, because he's just, he hasn't passed, although he's certified, he hasn't passed the training portion of it.
Can't function independently.
He cannot, he doesn't do anything alone. We don't allow him to do anything alone.
For
He can eat alone, but that's
a period
about
of
it.
time, or there's 1 or 2 things.
Yeah.
We won't go there.
Yeah.
How long?
Typically, a training period could be anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks, especially if the person comes from outside of Merrimack and they're not familiar with the roads. It takes a lot, you know. I mean, although you're driving around all night, it still takes a lot to get to familiarize yourself with the roads. So it depends. Some people are quicker, some people are a little bit slower, but it has nothing to do, you know, with their abilities. It's just some people retain things quicker than others, so.
And that kind of adds up to the year or so that you were kind of implying that it takes to really get an officer in and trained and independent.
Become seasoned, probably
To become
3 years.
seasoned might be a good way to put it.
Seasoned. Well, right now, our seasoned people are 5 years. That's our seasoned people.
But yeah, I mean, with any profession.
Yeah.
You're talking, you know, minimally meeting criteria, but then to be really professional and confident, it takes 3 years.
Absolutely. I'm still waiting.
Some of
I'm
us are.
26.
I'm going to get good at this council position after a
Yeah.
bit, so, one of these days. Anything else that we need to talk? Bill?
I have a non-budget question, and I'll make it a yes or no,
I like those.
okay? And you're obligated not to answer it, but
Wait, she's
Obligated to not answer? Got it.
she can answer, I'm just,
She's not obligated to answer.
has our relationship with the county attorney's office improved?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay?
I didn't go any further. See? I really appreciate your time. I thank you very much. I know I'm winded and these guys can't stand it, but
And Chief, we really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
We're happy you're
being
here,
able to
Chief.
be here and good
Thank
to
you.
see you.
Good to
Thanks
see you,
all of
Captain
you.
Charlton.
Captain
Thank you.
Charlton.
Hang in there, kiddo.
absolutely. I'm sorry to the library.
Yeah, we're going to apologize to them in just a minute.
Can we have a?
She pulled the pity card. She
We're
pulled,
gonna-
hey, Chief, she pulled the pity card. She's like, oh, she told me she's gonna, she said she's gonna wear,
We're going to, if you,
she's gonna make dark circles under her eyes and.
I wanted to do was keep my eyebrows for tonight, and I did, so they can go.
if you could bear with us for a minute, we're going to take a 5-minute break, okay? I appreciate it, but there's only so much sitting in these chairs you can do. Council's taking a 5-minute break. Can we get started again, Pete?
Tell them I said
Nancy?
hello.
Are we waiting for Mr. Peter?
I'm sorry?
Not Miss Nancy?
No, well, you guys were close. Okay, if we could
I'm warning you, Rothaus.
put the council back in order. And now we're going to start up with the library. Welcome.
Hi.
And thank you for your patience. We really appreciate it.
Fine.
Someone had to be the best, the best that we saved for last, so.
I'm Deborah Koval. I'm the chair of the Library Board of Trustees, and I had the pleasure of coming before you in November to talk about all the wonderful things that are happening at the library with our director, Yvette Kauser. And tonight we're joined by Janet Krupp, the Library Board of Trustees treasurer. Our secretary, that's dedication. That's Karen Freed back there. She is here to support
We
us
have more
as
chairs
well.
if you want to come join us.
We offered.
That's what we said.
Yes. So we're happy to be before you and talk to you about our budget. If you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt us at any time.
As you
Counselor
can see,
Healy-
we do all the time.
Good, that's great. Counselor Healy had some questions for us as well. I don't know if we should address those now.
They all received the packet with your answers, and
Okay.
Councilor Haley, that'll be emailed to her and put in there, so.
Okay, if you have further questions, we'd be happy to explain
Would-
it.
So you might, feel free to go over these if they seem pertinent as far as just general for the public's information kind of stuff, but, I mean, so you don't have to.
Sure, you know, I,
Questions
sure.
about too.
So, I
Yeah,
mean,
so the two things that she specifically asked us about was our increase in maintenance supplies this year from $4,000 to $6,000. And I believe we may have mentioned it before that we were proactively supporting the state Senate Bill 142, which was requiring that school districts provide feminine hygiene materials free in the ladies' restrooms. The trustees felt, Yvette brought that to us, and we felt that it was the appropriate thing for us to also be doing that and to get ahead of it. This past year, the trustees paid for the installation of the receptacle and the year's supply of products. So we certainly want to keep that stocked. We don't know what it's going to exactly amount to going forward. This will be our first year, so we wanted to make sure we had the ability to fund that going forward. So that was, did you have anything about that, Yvette?
No.
Okay, and the other
fine.
specific question was travel and meetings, which actually remained the same, but I think Counselor Healy's concern was that we had not spent the $6,000 in the past. So one of the reasons that we have that, we've kept it at $6,000 is that we have a number of staff that have been either promoted, we have some staff openings, so we know we'll be getting some new staff members in. So we want to make sure that they have training available to them so that we can continue to provide excellent services to the people of Merrimack. In addition to that, with travel, we're proud to announce that Yvette is the president-elect of the New Hampshire Library Association. So next year she'll be the president, which will involve some more travel for her as well to meetings, but that is an asset to our community to have Yvette have a role in what's going on across the state in the library community. So we're very happy about that and certainly want to support that going forward. So, any questions about that?
she's not smiling as broadly as I was hoping.
I'm
She's
getting
thrilled.
embarrassed.
Good. So those were the two specific concerns she mentioned. Janet is really our expert on the budget, so she was going to highlight a few other things for you.
Okay.
So.
Good evening.
Good evening.
There are just a couple, actually, there's only 4, maybe 5 areas that I wanted to address. And one of them is, more specifically, is the wages. We brought up in November that we did a wage study back in 2017 that we wanted to start implementing. The wages for the professional staff and the supporting staff, we implemented our schedule, which is why their salaries have changed and gone up. However, we've had staff change. We've had people leave since this initial budget, since we put the budget into you back in October or mid-November. So the wages, the 8103 line will actually go down for 2021. It's going to go down at least about $5,000 with our new staff that we have going in there. So that is our, Paul?
Was just saying, just send me all the changes and I'll
Yeah.
filter them
Yeah,
through
you'll-
the council.
Okay.
Fill it in. But that's great. So from 312 down to
307.
307.
Yep.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
that's our biggest change, but I wanted to bring that to your attention. Then our health insurance, as you scroll down through it, it's 8131. I just wanted to highlight that when Paul talked to our insurance company, they quoted us at the 12,000 for 2021 as opposed to 14,000, which is why that went down to the 132. Deb brought up the maintenance and the travel, the materials, which is
8450. What is it? 8450.
Yep, 8450, she's on top of it, was an increase, but we added two databases. One is Universal Class, which is an online courses. There's over 500 courses online that range from math, sciences, writing to self-help, do-it-yourself projects. There's even pet care, finance, business, parenting, all online and ready for anybody who has a library card can access that. So we added that, as well as consumer reports, which most people know that they review popular products and you can see how everything falls out. So that's part of the increase. The other increase is, or one of the other increases is, we added a line for Library of Things. Library of Things is, like for right now, we've been looking at instruments.
Talked about that.
Right, exactly. In November, we talked about it.
What line is
This is under,
8450,
8450.
page 92.
Library material, library things.
and,
Library Things is right toward the end.
yeah, which, for next year, the trustees are actually gonna pick up, but we wanted to at least show that it was there. And then also under the 8450, you can see that the trustees have decided to pay for $11,000 of various materials for the library. And then the other thing I wanted to just highlight is that the capital reserve, there's nothing for the library. There's no scheduled capital reserve purchase for 2021. So those are my highlights that in terms of our bigger changes in terms of the bottom line.
Nancy?
It's probably a question for Paul, and maybe it's the presentation I'm not understanding. I have two different library materials, 115 8450 and 3838 8450. Is that one of the trustees versus?
Yeah, because of the way it's set up, they're putting $11,000 into the library trustees, and the library trustees fund is 3838. And that's why you have the two different 8450s.
Okay,
Is
so,
one, if you add them together, if you add the two budgets together, it totals $1,221,710.
okay, so the trustees is giving $11,000 to the 8450 for the library, is that right?
Yes,
So the total is 114,008,
correct,
which is what the total is. Okay,
yes.
so that explains that.
It-
Okay.
It's a accounting that I have to do for the state.
I understand.
Right.
And I assume that, but I needed to understand it because it was confusing. Okay, thank you. I knew that would be his question, not yours.
It's not a problem.
Peter?
Ladies, under 8450, I look at video games for $2,000.
We'll let Yvette speak to that.
I guess I'm kind of thinking, do we really need to provide video games? Or are we, how does that work? I'm not sure how, I mean, these are.
You must not be a
I was
gamer.
gonna say,
That's what I.
Well, I guess I'm not really, but I'm thinking, it just seems like there's plenty of video games in everybody's houses, or maybe I'm missing.
Why go out and drop X number of dollars on Madden 2020? We can go to the library and borrow it and see if you like it. That way you can go out and
Well,
buy it for
yeah, I
yourself.
get that, but, okay.
I feel like I don't need to be at this table tonight. That's exactly correct.
Exactly.
That's exactly correct. There is a demand for video games, and we've in response to that, updated the collection and increased the collection, so we have more holdings. Wildly popular. And then in the Library of Things, which used to just be makerspace items, with the cake pans, it didn't really make sense to call it makerspace items anymore. So the phrase out there in library land is Library of Things, because you could put anything in there. Which I might have mentioned before. But so now we have instruments with the partnership with Anastasia Corman O'Reilly, who is one of the Girl Scouts who did her Silver Award with us this fall. And video game consoles are now able to be checked out. So you can come in and let's say at your household, you know, you have, well, I'm gonna just not even gonna pick on the kids. Let's say the dads, because the dads are the ones who are the huge gamers. And I'll say my husband is a ridiculous gamer. I have no interest in this stuff, but someone does, and they're very popular, and they are being checked out. So that's to answer your question. Do we need this? Apparently so. You know, and it's you know what we say kind of is, you know, the next gamer. You know, gamers today, the kids growing up doing games, they're going to be the game designers in the future. So, you know, yeah, but it's popular. You know, it's really popular. And our staff are the ones who kind of research which games are popular, which games are coming out, when are they coming out, let's go buy them on Black Friday. So there's a lot of discounting, you know, smart shopping going on with them. And I'm like, whatever, you know, whatever, go for it.
Right.
It's fine.
Thank you for that education.
Sure.
I'm impressed you knew a game. Because that.
So let
I don't know any.
let the record reflect, I'm not a gamer. I don't
Well,
play.
you knew that particular game.
Well,
No, but you knew
Well, you have a teenager,
how
that's right.
people are accessing the library.
Correct.
Before that.
You know, and it's the same thing in our Library of Things. I was just talking to Deb. She was like, I can't believe we have a cricket machine.
I think you should
No.
change library
What
things to
machine?
honor Alex Trebek and call it potpourri. That would be really cool.
In honor of Alex.
In honor of Alex.
I'll bring it to the staff. See, that's it. People need to understand what the, you know, they have to understand what the word is. And, you know, if they go to another library when they're on vacation, which is what happened with Anastasia, she was on vacation and said, this library has instruments. Why can't my home library in Merrimack have instruments? It's like, it can, you know, if you want to run with this. So.
For me, you know, when I was growing up, the library was a place to study. The library was a place to do research.
Yep.
The library
You're such a good guy.
was always a place to socialize. But when I joined the council in 2011, you know, there was a sense amongst our previous colleagues that sat here that, you know, what's the direction of the library? What's the new paradigm going to be? And when you understand the genesis of what a library is, it's not just limited to books. It's about information.
Yeah.
It's about being exposed to different ideas and different thought processes. So it doesn't surprise me, you know, audiobooks, videotapes, you know, video games. You know, you talk about Consumer Reports. There's just a myriad of different things that a library can entail. So I think it's a reflection of the philosophy of the paradigm change that's occurred at the library over the last couple of years. And, you know, and it's also the programming that's going on there as well. Some of the authors that are coming in to talk about certain things, the turkey raffle, that you had that one day where you had people.
The human library.
The human library. I mean, that's just a variety of different ways to drive traffic into our library. So you and the staff and Board of Trustees, I really think you've done a lot of yeoman's work really changing the direction for the good. And let me be very candid, you know, for the good of our community. So it's a good thing. It's very positive from where I sit. So.
Yeah, that's definitely what we're seeing. I actually wrote about this in our annual report I just submitted to Eileen's office.
I didn't read it, by the way. So
You haven't, because it's not published yet.
That's correct.
Doesn't mean you haven't
But
seen
that's
it,
exactly
but
what I
anyway.
wrote about, where, you know, libraries are more about what we can do for people rather than what we have for people. You know, although we still have things and they want us to have things and they're asking me to have things. It's a different space, you know, and we're trying to adapt to that, and hopefully we are.
The one last question I would ask you, has that consortium fee with GMLICS gone up?
It probably went up a little bit. We changed van services. Do you know, Janet? Maybe you could look at it.
I think it was constant this year.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that usually goes up is the van delivery, and that's a separate company that we contract with, and their restrictions on us about how many bags, how heavy are the bags, how many bins, how heavy are the bins, you know, it's that kind of thing, and then they have a route going around all the 12 libraries, and based on how many delivery days we have. So I know in the consortium, there was a change in the membership where New England College absorbed the New Hampshire Institute of Art, and the New Hampshire Institute of Art was a separate GMILCS library, the Teddy Library, but now it's absorbed, and we haven't figured out how the dues are going to change.
Okay.
Because it doesn't seem to make sense to any of us on the board, on the GMILCS board, to have very suddenly, you know, one New England college absorb, you know, the Teddy Library's dues, which they wouldn't have been able to participate.
The reason why I'm asking is I've requested books that have come out of the consortium before. I guess, what is the percentage of your library patrons that utilize the
That's in my
consortium?
town report.
Well, I haven't read your town report.
I know, but it's not published yet, but I don't.
You know,
It's not proprietary.
May I speak to
Do
GMILCS for a
I
second?
do
You speak while I look up
do
my
I need
numbers.
to do a right to know
So-
request?
No.
Okay.
Hang on.
I just want to say something in praise of GMILCS, though, because when I moved here from New York, there was no regional consortiums of any kind. There was no resource sharing going on. And so, you know, maybe 20, 25 years ago, a group of librarians decided our patrons deserve better than this, and they got together and they formed this consortium. And it is the only thing like it in the state. It provides our patrons with access to all these different libraries, both to easily request books online or to walk in. I often stop on my way home at Amherst and grab a book. If I want it, I can return it here in Merrimack, and their patrons can do the same. We have a shared catalog. We share other things. It's just a wonderful, wonderful resource. So I know you weren't
I'm not
saying
being
anything.
critical
No,
about it.
it's
I'm
just, I just think people should know it's really a wonderful thing for the state of New Hampshire. And I think there are probably many libraries that wish they had gotten in on the ground floor of it, because we're really lucky to have it as part of our services here.
They
So,
can't add to it now? They can't join
well,
it?
Oh, you mean add membership to the consortium? Oh, yeah. But, you know, that is, you know, sometimes the board goes out and kind of campaigns for, hey, Concord, do you want to join us? Hey, Plymouth, do you want to join us? And what's the mutual benefit? You know, what's the unique collection that Concord has
Gotcha.
or Portsmouth has that would benefit this region? And sometimes other libraries come to us and say, well, we really like what you guys are doing over there. Can we join? And then you have a meeting with the membership committee and representatives from that library, and then they have to bring there's an agreement you have to sign, and you have to understand what it costs to join, which is what you see on our budget. That's,
Right.
you know, what it takes to do this. And then they have to bring that to their trustee board, and the trustees have to decide if this is an investment they want to make or not. So the last library I believe that joined us was in Wyndham, was the Nesmith Library in Wyndham. And you know, we're trying to date other libraries and get them to join us, because we see the value in something that a larger you know, Concord and Portsmouth are amazing libraries, and they have a lot of wonderful resources. But if they are able to pay for their catalog system, their ILS, independently and don't have to go into a group buy, then they're willing to do that. But it all depends on, you know, what does the governing body see as the best thing for the library. But no, we can always expand, but
there's something to be said for being in on the ground floor, though, and being
Oh,
part
yeah.
of the group that
Yes, there
starts
is.
it. So,
So what was the percentage?
well, here's the thing. So the town report that I have access to right now is on the drive, but the town report that I sent is at my desk. So you're gonna have to wait. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
that's fine.
It's about, you know, It's not exactly half and half, but those numbers are there. Because we were really curious to see how many Merrimack residents go to other GMILKS libraries and how many people from other towns that share the GMILKS stuff come to Merrimack. I think, and there's two ways to do it. You can make a request and pick it up. You know, someone's gonna request a book and I live in Bedford and I'm gonna go pick it up at Bedford, you know, from Merrimack, or you can walk over there. I mean, you can't walk over there to Bedford, that would take too long. But you can get over there and pick it up there because you live close or work close to another library. But we have both of those numbers in the report,
Okay, good
which
deal.
you can look forward to.
I-
And then ask me any questions after.
I'll be waiting with bated breath.
I know you will.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Peter.
Yvette, do you and any of your staff use the New Hampshire Municipal Association for?
Yes, we do. We were able to go, I had myself and another staff person, and one of our trustees went to the Right to Know training in Derry, which was, for us, overdue. I think I had gone to Right to Know when I first became the director in 2012. And it's always it's so beneficial, especially for a new trustee, new administrator in our library, to really understand, okay, guys, you really have to understand the right to know and what you can and cannot say and all those things.
And I ask because
Yeah.
I know Councilor Harrington pointed out, and it's a significant cost. And
Yeah.
to me, I'm curious to see, I'm glad to hear if it's of use, let's keep going with it, but if it's underused, let's not. So I'm glad to hear that. I've been asking everybody that.
That's
And-
okay, because Paul also sent us emails around to all the departments so that we could track it, and that's what we're
Fantastic.
doing. So we can certainly look for more opportunities. I mean, if the council decides not to renew it, then we would, you find other ways to get the information.
And just one other thing, quick comment. With the cold weather set in, I've been on a reading chair. Been in there a few times
Okay.
now, and your staff is awesome. Friendly,
Thank you.
helpful. The atmosphere
Yes.
has been great. It's clean,
Yes.
it's nice. Great job.
Thank you. I totally agree. We have an amazing staff right now there. I'll tell you, we have, Janet was talking about the decrease in the salary lines. That's because we have 2 openings right now for our department heads. Our head of circulation is now the assistant director at the Pelham Public Library, and good for her. I'm not bitter. And I'm not. I sent her a card, I sent her a card after her first week, and I said, yay, I'm not bitter. I'm not bitter. But, and then our head of adult services also left for bigger and better things, also not bitter. But, so now we've had, since we submitted the budget, why are you laughing? Since we submitted the budget, it was one story, and now plot change, here we are in January, with no department heads. We have some department heads, but we have 2 openings, and it's in the biggest department, which is circulation. And, residents are wonderful, our residents are wonderful, but sometimes they don't want to pay a fine or own up to, why is this book sopping wet? It was like that when I checked it out. You can't make this stuff up. Anyway, so anyway, our staff has really pulled together without complaint. Without complaint, and
Or
just
being bitter.
or being bitter, and rallied. I am separating myself from this group of staff, but they've really, just kind of rallied together. They've covered shifts. Reference staff are helping circulation staff, and it's like, on one hand, I'm surprised. Wow, everyone's so kind and courteous to each other and helping, and at the same time, I should not be surprised, and yet I am. But that's because I'm me. But they're really amazing. They're really just wonderful, wonderful staff just to pull together, and I'm not wearing a knit cap because I'm not sick like the chief is. But I had the flu last week and I was out. And then I came back and my staff were like, can I make you some echinacea tea? Yvette, how are you feeling? And I'm like, oh my God, wow, I'd love some tea, but you don't have to I can make it my own tea if you just, I'll make it myself. But they were like, how are you, Yvette? And I'm like, I'm okay. But I was surprised to be, I don't know, it was just, I agree with you. It's a nice environment, and I'm so glad that other people see it, but I'm also glad that it's just, they're lovely. They're wonderful, and they're wonderful. Yes, we're very fortunate.
Eileen?
I just wanted to let you know that either today or yesterday, Paul had actually asked NHMA to send us a list of the people who participated, so we don't miss. Somebody doesn't say, well, we went to this, oh, we forgot that. So they keep track of that, so they sent us all that stuff, and we'll be forwarding that on to you.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, thanks. Anybody else? I just want to throw in my 2 cents along with Bill and others that you guys are doing a great job. I mean, I actually went to the library a couple of times this past summer.
Yep.
And just enjoyed the fact that they were things other than just going and reading a book or newspaper or something like that. And so I think you are doing a great job.
Thanks.
And really appreciate the work that you're doing. I see your board on the side of the building when I come down DW Highway, and I'm thinking, oh, that's an awesome looking program. I can't make that. It's on a Thursday night. Oh, well, you know,
Sorry.
but there are a lot of things going on, and they're catching my eye, which
good.
I think is a good thing, because it's going to get people to be more involved, even though many of us are busy to the point where we can't make the meetings or schedules. And I see a lot of the things, because I get your emails,
Okay.
weekly emails, that you need to register for in advance. And unfortunately, planning that distinctly in advance is complicated. So assuming we're not supposed to go if we didn't register.
I probably can't answer that, because that's a very broad,
Yeah.
come on down.
But anyway, I do appreciate the work that you're doing,
Okay.
and think you're doing a great job.
A couple of years ago, they got, I think it was a grant to have Blades, the Bruins mascot, come, and they had one of the Bruin Ice Girl
Yep.
came. They did swag bags for the kids. They read a story to the kids, and thought that was a great opportunity. And of course, I went because I had to go meet Blades.
Oh, okay.
Got to meet the mascot. That was the best. But no, but it's that kind of program that's driving traffic to the library that I think is just, again, makes our community
Good.
as vibrant as it is right now. So thank you.
Before we go, if I could just say one other thing. We have our trustee meeting next Tuesday, and we'll be looking at maybe if some of those positions are filled or whatnot. And so we won't be able to give you the exact numbers until after at least our meeting next Tuesday, if that's okay. Okay. Okay, great, thank you. We'll make sure. I'm sorry, I don't think your microphone's working. so.
I heard her.
Okay.
Okay.
Wonderful,
If
thank
there's
you.
no other questions, thank you very much for coming and for
Thank you.
waiting. We
Okay,
really
thank you very
appreciate
much.
it.
Thanks.
It's dedication on extraordinaire. Which brings up to any other questions or comments. Paul?
Thank you, Council, Chairman. I just want to clarify one thing. We talked about OME and the Merrimack Premium Outlet trying to get on that tower. I received an email tonight as we were talking about that. OME has responded, and we have forwarded that along to the tower company to get a cost on how much it would be to include our antenna on their tower. Don't believe we're going to have that before the 29th, but at least the ball is starting to roll.
And I don't believe it's going to be inexpensive.
I don't think so either.
That's very high priced.
To just add on to that, we were saying that they weren't responsive, but Captain Dubriel said they weren't responsive, and then he went back and he found the response in his spam email. So I'm saying that they were. I now know that they were responsive, and I'd just like to say that publicly.
Thank you.
Which is something we all learn.
Yep.
Any other comments from the council?
In general?
Yes?
Okay. Thank you. This will only take me an hour. No.
Motion to- no.
We keep hearing everything we're talking about. We're talking about what the tax rate's gonna be, and I know every person seated here is concerned with that. And you keep seeing an ongoing theme on Facebook. The growth, stop it, and so forth. And There's a couple things that always cross my mind are, you know, with this new Park Place coming in over by the outlets and stuff, can we consider impact fees, or not necessarily fees, but, you know, these places are, I mean, we need more policemen. The fire department's coming to us. There's growth, a health inspector and everything else. Can we start looking, because this isn't the end of it. And as much as people, you know, we can't just wave our wand and tell everybody that you can't build anymore when your place has already been zoned for commercial, industrial, residential. It's just not that easy. You know, maybe it's time the town considers, can we do it? Maybe my senior counselors here could tell me, or somebody.
Somebody can probably tell you.
I don't mean to cut you off mid-sentence, but, so impact fees used to be a really simple thing. So you do an impact fee and people would have to pay a certain amount of money and that kind of thing. Now, it has to relate specifically, you have to specifically, so let's say, and I don't profess to be an expert, so I'm just giving you the generalities of what I know. So let's say a Park Place came in, and people also have to understand, they're paying a big, huge amount of taxes. So it's not like a free-for-all kind of thing where they're not paying their share of taxes. So it adds to the tax base, so which means more tax revenue. But so an impact fee, like I said, it used to be very simple, and you just kept it. But then I don't remember, I think when I maybe have first started here, they had all kinds of problems in Londonderry, the town manager left and all these other kinds of things because they were hanging on to impact fees. Now, impact fees now, they actually, you assess them a certain amount of money and then after a very short period of time, you have got to prove with factual data that there were a certain number of calls that related specifically to them, and if they don't, if those things are not proven, you have to immediately give them back the money. So it's a very cumbersome, burdensome, and I'm not really sure that it's worth it. So, you know, I know Tim Thompson's looked into them before because he actually came from Londonderry originally. They're not what they're cracked up to be.
Right.
Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry, Finley.
No, I was just going to speak to what little I know of impact fees. I've always believed that the planning board has been able to have developers do things like traffic lights and things of this nature, where with the impact fees, I've been led to believe that wouldn't be so much the case. And so that seems to have worked well for the town. As far as also these increase in need of personnel, first, don't let the social media pages dictate to you. But that's what's been happening lately. So, but I want to put that on the table. But there's an increased value to our community as well, which helped offset some of those costs. So, you know, the outlets come in, they pay, I don't know what, $1.5 million. They pay a boatload of money. So these places are going to be developed, and
The mall pays over $2 million.
just over $2 million. Yeah, I didn't do the
Yes.
math, but they bring that in. They bring added cost to the town, sure, but a lot of it. I mean, quite
We
honestly, our
have to
tax rate
remember that 70% of that goes to the school.
Right.
I think that's what the most important thing
Which
to
helps.
see is that when you, when the taxes come in, we're now at 19% of the tax rate. We represent 19% of the tax rate, the town, everything that relates to the town, police, fire, blah, blah, blah. But,
Which is the issue.
but the thing is when the revenue comes in from, let's say, a mall, there are no students at the mall, but 70-something percent goes to the school.
That's-
So it's
That's the
if it went to the town, we would have the money because they pay enough taxes to pay for extra personnel. But it's just the way the system works.
Right.
And thanks, and it's all good points, and, you know, I kind of understood where everybody's going with this, but I think say it out loud, let people hear it, understand it. And just one other thing, I think our community as we go forward, as it develops, I'd really like to see us start looking at people who want to bring in affordable housing for senior citizens. We have a Coventry Court, and I think there's 40 units there that are affordable for our senior citizens. What I see built now is not affordable for our senior citizens, and there's a lot of folks who spent their whole life here, and then when they reach a certain age have to leave because of income. And I'd love to see us go down that road of trying to bring some of those folks in, community development, bring some of these developers in for some of these tracts of land to build some of, affordable housing for our senior citizens. So, thank you. I'm done. I'll get off my soapbox.
But I understand what you're saying, Pete, but I think there has to be a realization, which is what Eileen is saying, is that things like Park Place, like the mall, they probably, and I believe, the impact on the school is going to be minimal. In the mall, it's certainly nothing. But the impact on the services that the town has to provide is obviously enhanced. But we have to pay for that extra, that increased need, based upon a very small percentage of that total revenue. And that's the difficulty, and that's what we have a problem. We get into a catch-22. First of all, the town has nothing to say about what can be developed if it meets the criteria by the ordinances. If I own a piece of land, I can do with it as long as I meet that criteria. The town cannot say, we don't want you. Can't happen. Even if we emotionally want to say that, you can't do that. And then there is a evaluation done based upon how is that development going to impact the schools, how many projected students they're going to have. But that's the impact the school has, which is usually, I don't want to say not at all, but it's minimal. Usually the impact has to do with traffic that you need police for, all those at the fire department, and yet here we are, and we talked about this early, and philosophically, we've been really good to the point where people expect that of us even now, even when the need is dramatically changed. And we got to stop biting the bullet here. Sorry, but that is what it is.
And you're off your soapbox.
I'm done with my soapbox.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by Lon. Motion made by Bill, seconded by Lon. To adjourn, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstaining? That passes 6-0-0. If I didn't say it, Barbara Healy was excused tonight. I think she mentioned it in the last meeting, so everybody knew, but in any case. Tomorrow night, 6:30?
What day?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Next Wednesday, right?
Next
Is it when?
Thursday, tomorrow.
We're having a meeting.
No meeting tomorrow?
You and I meet Friday
So
morning at
This was a
8:30.
snow day
Right.
tomorrow.
Oh.
And then we've got the following Wednesday, and then we got fire Thursday before council.
Correct.
So we're not meeting tomorrow.
Nothing tomorrow. I'm on my way to Rhode Island tomorrow.
I thought we had, but that's because Barbara's not gonna be here tomorrow either, right? We were just making one day that she was gonna
Right,
miss.
we rearranged it.
Okay. I didn't get an updated calendar in my jump drive. Thanks, guys and gals.
You can tell she's a